too much. Help me. I've been thinking too much. I've been thinking too much. I've been thinking too much. Help me. I've been thinking too much. I've been thinking too much. I've been thinking too much. Help me. Staring at two different views on your window ledge. Coffee is gone cold, it's like time froze. There you go, wishing floating down, I wish it. It's like I'm always causing problems, causing. I didn't mean to put you through this, I could. We gonna sweep this under the carpet. I hope that I can turn back the time to make it all alright for us. I promise to build a new world for us two, with you in the middle. Lying down beside you, what's going through your head? The silence in the air felt like my soul froze. Am I just overthinking feelings I can't? This gut feeling I'm trying to get off me ass. I hope we find the missing pieces and just we gonna sweep it under the carpet. I hope that I can turn back the time to make it all alright for us. I promise to build a new world for us two, with you in the middle.
We were born to fly, so let's keep living till it all falls down. Let's close our eyes and let the moment drown the whole world out. We're in this together. Hear our hearts beat together. We stand strong together. We're in this forever.
he's just not right for you. And you could tell me if I'm off, but I see it on your face when you say that he's the one that you want. And you're spending all your time in this wrong situation, and anytime you want it to stop, I know I can treat you better than he can. And any girl like you deserves a gentleman. Tell me why are we wasting time on all your wasted crime when you should be with me instead. I know I can treat you better, better than he can. I'll stop time for you the second you say you'd like me to. I just wanna give you the loving that you're missing, baby, just to wake up with you will be everything I need, and this could be so different. Tell me what you want to do, 'cause I know I can treat you better than he can. And any girl like you deserves a gentleman. Tell me why are we wasting time on all your wasted crime when you should be with me.
Good evening. It's a major American city dealing with an epidemic of violence. The shooting of a man in broad daylight on the streets of Chicago, apparently captured on his own camera phone,
that we received from officials this afternoon, providing us with the statistics that show violent crime in the city.
Please pray for our families.
The people in this room are going to change America.
We got love, love, love. You better believe it. We got love, love, love. You better believe it.
I got house in the carriage, yeah. I got black love and marriage, yeah. They gon' say you can't have it, but I'm like, don't kill the messenger. We gon' break the stigma up. Huxtables turn to Obamas. It ain't about where you been, where you from, what you got. It's all about love. Self-love is the best love. When you gon' take that risk, man. That petty party been over. Don't need makeup to dress you up. I get work on the bathroom floor. Just be eat on the headphone calls. Don't like this life to feed you. I hope this message reach you. Throw your hands up. Play catch with the hundreds. Love is the new money. I'm just chillin' with the homies. Homies with the hardest. Throw your hands up. Play catch with the hundreds. Love is the new money. I'm just chillin' with the homies. Homies with the hardest.
We got love, love, love. You better believe it. We got love, love, love. You better believe it.
I live in abundance. Love is the new money. I'm mentally wealthy, spiritually conscious. I'm fresh out of honest. I'm ballin' and ballin'. I play with the hundreds. Love is the new money. That's my frequency. Spark up, burn the sage. Clear the room, kill the hate. Love is the new wave. Play catch with the hundreds. Love is the new money. I'm just chillin' with the homies. Homies with the hardest. Ah. Play catch with the hundreds. Love is the new money. I'm just chillin' with the homies. Homies with the hardest.
We got love, love, love. You better believe it. We got love, love, love. You better believe it. We got love, love, love. You better believe it. We got love, love, love. You better believe it.
What's going on, everybody? You got it?
There you go. I got it. Hello. How amazing is this? How blessed are we? This is amazing. Hi.
You guys look absolutely beautiful out there.
You look great in your Blexit shirts. I love this so much. Did you guys like that video? Yeah, it's amazing, right? So when we were talking about creating that video, I was speaking to my creative director, and I said, what is the vibe of Blexit? And I said, what makes me so sad about the way that I see the media portraying black people or portraying our community is that they make it seem, they've made us more pathetic. Like when I grew up, the black community was loving, there was laughter, there was family, there was church, there was God, right? I remember black people being strong, right? The examples, the pillars of society. My grandfather was such a good man. He has such good morals, and he was a strong man. He was a strong man. And now we're seeing a society that wants to weaken the black man. They want to weaken the church. There's blatant anti-Christianity bias happening in our media. And I just don't know where it came from. So for me, I wanted Blexit to be a return to values, to restore the values in the black community, to make us realize that our enemy is not the white man. Our enemy is the mainstream media that is convincing us that we are only victims.
And I think this is probably the most beautiful time in history for us to really stand for something, for us to really come together and unite and make sure that our voice is heard. And I tell people all the time, this is not about Democrat, Republican. This is about finding out where we want to be in this country, where we want our future to be, who's going to represent the things that we value and hold dear to our heart, and we stand by those principles. No matter what side of the aisle you're on, you stand by the principles of God, stand by the principles in which are going to make us successful.
So a big thesis that I have, and it's correct, is that the left thinks that minorities are stupid. They genuinely believe that we are stupid, that we do not do research, that we do not think, and all they have to do is plug into our emotions to inspire a reaction and to create division and to create hate in America. And you guys like this sign, by the way? Robert Francis O'Rourke is not Hispanic. I mean, what is that? Does he really think that by giving himself a name Beto, the Hispanic community is so stupid that they're going to rally behind him? Who are other candidates? Joe Biden. Joe Biden comes out, and what does he say? Yeah, a great sign, right? He says, oh, I knew I had to step to the plate. He had to step to the plate, Brandon, because, you know, I saw the Charlottesville attacks, the rise of the KKK, and I knew at that time that I had to step up. Reminder, Joe Biden, your mentor, best friend, and political ally was Robert Byrd, a literal Klansman. No thank you, Joe Biden. No thank you. Joe Biden championed the 3 strikes, the thing that locked up and incarcerated more black men than any president in history under Clinton. That was Joe Biden who authored that. But he's like, it's okay. Black people don't do research. They're so dumb. They're just going to get behind me because I'm going to say the opposite. Who else do we have as candidates? Who else in the clown show on the left do we have as candidates?
Oh man, I can't think of all the names of them, but Kamala is another one. Wait, do y'all remember when she said, back in college, I was smoking marijuana and listening to Tupac, and Tupac didn't have an album out when she was in college. Total fraudulence.
And the insult. She could have said, hey, black community, I'm going to talk to you about your issues. Hey, Hispanic community, I'm going to talk to you about the issues. We're going to talk about, you know, the plague of gun violence, black on black crime. What did she do? She offered marijuana. I mean, really think about what that says. It's an insult. They don't even want to have a conversation with us. They just think they're going to give us Beyonce. They're going to give us Jay-Z. They're going to give us celebrities, right? And we're never going to have the audacity to think for ourselves. And we have to be able to disrupt that. Who's another candidate that they have on the left?
Oh, Bernie. Crazy hair Bernie.
Bernie Sanders, advocating for socialism. He's a pretty wealthy guy, right? He wants us to live the way he won't live. He flies private everywhere. He advocates for socialism. Well, socialism actually has already been tried in this country. If you didn't know, they tried that via the welfare system in the black community, okay? Do you want to know what that did? That removed the fathers from the home. In the 1960s, the single motherhood rate in the black community was 23%. Today it is 77% because they used their welfare policies to incentivize father absence. Because you know what they know? If you break down the family, everything else falls apart. Everything else falls apart.
And they've neglected to put our young men and black strong men in positions that God has already ordained them to be in. This welfare state gives these young brothers a cop-out. Because if you don't take care of your family, you're not at home, you're not present, the government will take your position. And that's not the way we operate in our community. And we really need to focus on getting back to that. It is unacceptable. Young men got to step up and do their part. It's the position that God has put us in.
Speaking of that, and speaking of fathers, and speaking of masculinity, one of the things that I speak out against all the time, and everyone should speak out against it, is the radicalization of the feminist movement, okay? It's a disaster. It's a disaster, okay? You have these women that are wearing pink pussy hats, and they're screaming for things that they say are progressive, and yet they always lead to regressive results in the black community. First and foremost, we'll talk about one of them, abortion, right? Right? They love murdering babies. And they say, it's our right, it's our choice. Well, why is it that your choice disproportionately affects black women, right? Why is it that 17 million black babies have been aborted since 1973 and Planned Parenthood was created by an avowed racist, Margaret Sanger? And what did she say? She wanted to exterminate black people like weeds, okay? Does the black community know that? This is the message that we have to get out, because by and large, she's been successful. Margaret Sanger's dream is becoming true right now, and this is why. Our community, the black population growth has stagnated. Our population growth is not growing right now, and the left knows that, so who are they turning to for votes? Because we're going to be irrelevant. They're not going to care about the black vote anymore. Illegals, right? Open the borders. Open the borders. It's incumbent upon us to open the borders. Why? Because illegal is the new black. They are going to open the borders and flood illegals in so that they have a new voting bloc that they can rely on. And they're going to socialize that community too. They're going to remove God, and they're going to remove fathers from their homes too. That is all it ever means to them. All they're ever looking for are voting mules.
And if you don't believe it, look at them trying to change the voting age. They want to change the age of 16. What's the difference between a 16 and a 14-year-old? They're both in high school, and neither one of them are adults. They're trying to change the voting age. They don't want them to be able to put whether or not you're illegal or legal on the Census Bureau. Why not? They think that we're so dumb and not capable of functioning in society that we can't even get an identification. So they want to remove identification from a requirement to vote, which is asinine to me. How in the world, think about this, they call it racism and that it's prejudice or disenfranchising African-American people. I've never heard them saying that going to the store and buying alcohol was disenfranchising black people because you have to use an ID. You have to fly with an ID. You open a bank account with an ID. You have to get into almost every venue you go to with an identification. And they consistently lie. We are functioning, productive people in this country. We can get IDs. We don't need none of your handouts. All we need is an opportunity for you to get out the way and let us succeed.
And let's talk about that, because what an insult. The black community is too stupid to figure out how to get identification. And as you mentioned, there's literally nothing you can do in society without ID. So here's the irony, and here's the hypocrisy, because the left is always hypocritical. You just have to wait 5 seconds, and they'll be saying and doing the opposite of what they said 5 seconds ago, okay? So they say the black community is too stupid to figure out how to get identification. But now they're advocating for reparations, because what? They figured that we can't get our paperwork together to get an ID, but we're going to be able to prove our ancestral ties to slavery, right? I don't have my birth certificate, but conveniently, I have this document which traces me right back to Harriet Tubman, right? It's a joke. Everything is a farce. It's a complete circus on the left, and we have to change it around because they are trying to create division. They want women to hate men. They want black people to hate white people. Give them a few hours, and they're going to be launching a war between tall and short people. Just give them some time. Give them some time. This is what the left has become.
And all they do is promise. I heard they promise without delivering. Reparations. You hear them talk about reparations. They say, well, it's time to have a conversation.
A full-throated conversation, as Elizabeth Warren, who is not Native American, said.
We are done with the conversations. And I heard this guy named David Banner. I think a few people saw David Banner's rant on the internet, and I was very shocked that he said it, but he said, I don't want your hope. I want results. They said that Barack Obama was all about hope. He never promised anything. He said, I'll give you hope. And he gave us no hope. There's no solutions in the plans that they have for the black community. All they want to do is have conversations. All they want to do is sell you a myth, sell you a dream. It's time for us to really have tangible evidence. And I feel like that this administration has done a lot of that. Tangible evidence about what are you doing for the community. When you leave office, can we go back and look at a document that says you have done something effectively for the black community?
Couldn't agree more. People ask me all the time, how could you possibly support this president? Give me one reason why I shouldn't support this president. They can never give me one. We have record low unemployment for women. We have record low unemployment in the entire nation for black Americans, for Hispanic Americans, for women. Why shouldn't I support this president? Because he's white? Is that really? They think that we're so stupid? Well, we gave you guys a black guy for 8 years who came from Chicago, right? Fixed nothing in Chicago the entire time that he was there. More black men died on the south side of Chicago than men that died in the Iraq War. The numbers are parallel. It's a literal war zone, these urban communities, and they never talk about that. They'll have a full-throated conversation about reparations, but they're never going to talk about the urban communities. Do you want to know why? Because they created that. That is the literal plantation that they created. And it's time to change it around.
And they also want to have a full-throated conversation about this gun laws, right? But they only talk about these shootings that happen in urban areas, not say urban areas, but out in white communities. It's only ones they talk about. They get a person or two gets killed and a one rogue person. They talk about it all day long on the television. But we have mass shootings every day in our communities. When are they going to start addressing the issues in our communities reference to gun laws? And the thing about it is that they want to talk about AR-15s, and this is how they're so disingenuous. They want to talk about removing AR-15s, but most of the gun crimes that happen in this country happen with handguns. Most of the young brothers that's dying in the hood, they're not dying from AR-15s, they're dying from handguns. So if they really cared about gun violence, if they really cared about doing something, they will address issues around handguns. And I'll tell you this, in the communities, what we have seen time and time again is them blaming the guns and not blaming the circumstances. Them blaming the guns and not blaming the fact that these young people don't have enough help to get their minds straight. The hatred that has been building in the communities because of their policies. They want to divert you to a gun, but they don't want to divert you to the policies that is creating this madness in the community, and it's being perpetuated, and they don't want to do nothing about it.
They don't want you to know that the black youth and the Hispanic youth and all youth, when you remove the father from the homes, they run to the streets. They will go pursue that fraternity elsewhere. This is why I will never allow radical feminists to dehumanize men, to pretend masculinity is wrong, to pretend being a man is wrong. We have a lot of really exciting conversations to have with you before Brandon and I just go into a massive rant.
We'll do it.
The first voice, we'll do it. The first voice is such an important person. When I first came across his book, I was sort of waking up because I believed that I had to be a liberal. I believed that I had to be a Democrat. I believed that there was no other way for me. And when I first found his book and he broke down the truth, everything that you need to know to arm yourself with facts and education about the real history of the Democrat Party, I could say that his book saved me and it changed my life. So without further ado, you guys, please welcome to the stage Dinesh D'Souza.
Thank you. Wow. This is absolutely awesome. I'm thrilled to be here with Candace and be part of this important movement. I was 17 years old when I first saw America. I remember the airplane descending on New York City. I looked out of the window. I saw the skyline. I saw the Statue of Liberty. and a very strange feeling came over me. I realized my life was going to be completely different from that moment on. I felt I was moving from the margin of the world to the center. And I recognized in a very youthful way that I was coming to a country where I could be the architect of my own destiny. This is to me, the great promise of the American dream. Notice, by the way, that no other country really has a dream. I mean, the Chinese don't really have a dream. There's no Indian dream. There may be a French dream, but I really don't want to know. But when people talk about the American dream and they talk about immigrants, they think in terms just of economic opportunity, of American prosperity. And that is in fact part of the story. I have an acquaintance in Mumbai, in Bombay, India, who's been trying to come to America for many years. He's never managed to get a visa. And finally I said to the guy, I said, hey, why are you so eager to come to America? He goes, Dinesh, I really want to move to a country where the poor people are fat. And that is, like I say, that is part of the story. I lived with a host family in Arizona, and they would say to me, Dinesh, you're in a great state, Arizona. We want to take you sightseeing. We want to take you to see the Grand Canyon. We want to take you to see Tombstone, Arizona. You can see the fight at the OK Corral. And I was like, actually, if you want to take me sightseeing, take me to a grocery store. I want to see 17 types of cheese, 35 types of ice cream. But bigger than that, I think what America has meant to me has been the chance to write the script of my own life. And that dream we embrace by becoming Americans, by embracing the principles of America. The great obstacle to the American dream for immigrants, for minorities, for blacks, for Latinos, for Asian Americans, has simply been the Democratic Party. That's the historical truth, but it's a truth that is beautifully hidden from the American people, and particularly from minorities. The reason for this is that the left has been so powerful in academia, in the media, and in Hollywood. And by Hollywood, of course, I mean the whole entertainment industry, the music industry, the comedians, Broadway. And so when you control the megaphones of the culture, you control the narrative. The Democrats have been so successful in controlling the narrative that they're able to convince Republicans that the Republicans are the bad guys. There was a head of the RNC, Ken Melman, a few years ago, who was going to black churches and going to the NAACP and apologizing for the racist history of the Republican Party, even though the Republican Party has no racist history. Not only was the Democratic Party the party of slavery, but it was also the party of segregation, of Jim Crow, of racial terrorism, of the Ku Klux Klan. In my last movie, Death of a Nation, there's a scene in the movie where, if you didn't know my work, would be totally baffling. You see a scene in 1935 where all the heads of the major departments of the Nazis, the Justice Department and so on, are meeting in a room. And in this room they are enacting the Nuremberg laws, which were the infamous laws making Jews into second-class citizens. And the Nazis are very proud of themselves. They believe they're creating, in their own words, the world's first racist state, which to them is an accomplishment. They have a stenographer present to record the proceedings. And as the meeting begins, one of the Nazis puts his hand up and basically says to his fellow Nazis, we cannot create the world's first racist state because the Democratic Party has already done this in the United States. And the Nazis look at each other, and they're embarrassed, and quite frankly, they're a little pissed. they're a little pissed at being beaten to the punch. And so they asked this guy, well, what do you mean? And he says, well, what are we trying to do to the Jews? First, we're trying to segregate the Jews into ghettos. The Democrats have already passed segregation laws throughout the American South. Second, we want to outlaw miscegenation, intermarriage between Jews and other Germans. The Democrats have already passed anti-miscegenation laws in 19 states. And third, we want to confiscate the property of Jews, state-sponsored discrimination. He goes, that is also the legacy of the Democratic Party in America. And so the Nazis adjourn the meeting, and they demand copies of these democratic laws. And when they get them and they reassemble, basically what they do is they take the democratic laws, cross out the word black, write in the word Jew. And that is what we know today as the Nuremberg laws. In other words, the Nuremberg laws weren't just parallel to the racist laws of the Democratic Party, they were actually lifted directly from those laws. Now, interestingly, when I keep using the phrase the democratic laws, it seems a little odd, but the Nazis actually know something that is not taught in any high school or college in the United States, namely, that every single segregation law in the American South from the 1880s to the 1950s was passed by a Democratic legislature, was signed by a Democratic governor, was enacted by Democratic officials, and there is no exception to this rule. Moreover, the fact that the Nazis got their racist legislation from the United States and specifically from the Democratic Party, this fact, to my knowledge, appears in no textbook, in no article. It's never been on the History Channel. It's never been on NPR. It's not in Wikipedia. It is simply a fact erased from history, even though it's indisputable. The meeting occurred. I have the transcripts. It's supported by scholarship. It happened, but it's been essentially whited out. Whited out. Now, the left knows that this is their history. And so, in order to get out of it, their only way to get out of it, and this is what they put all their cards on today, is the idea of the big switch, which is the idea that the two parties switch sides, exchange platforms. Now, frankly, on the face of it, this is a little implausible. I mean, it's kind of like if somebody wanted to tell you, hey guys, you know, in the 1970s, the cops all decided to become criminals, and the criminals all decided to become cops. They just decided to switch sides. You'd be like, wow, how would that happen? That sounds insane. But nevertheless, this idea of the big switch is argued with complete conviction and sincerity, and it is taught in our schools. And so the case really hangs on this. And it also hangs on the idea that, say, for example, the Republican Party today has nothing to do with the legacy of Abraham Lincoln. That Lincoln, if he had lived today, would be a left-winger and a progressive. So I want to start by testing that idea. Very interestingly, when Lincoln defined slavery, Lincoln defined it not in racial terms. Lincoln said that the essence of slavery is captured in a simple idea. You work, I eat. In other words, the essence of slavery is theft. One guy does all the work, and the other guy steals the fruit of his labor. And Lincoln said that this is actually what the Democratic Party stands for, both in the North and in the South. The idea of theft. And then Lincoln was asked, what about the Republican Party? What does the Republican Party stand for? And Lincoln put it in his very homespun way. He goes, the hand that makes the corn has the right to put the corn into its own mouth. In other words, we have the right to keep the fruits of our labor. And this is Lincoln's position in the middle of the 19th century. And yet I would say today, if you fast forward more than 150 years, and you ask, what is the credo of the Republican Party? What does Trump stand for today? I would argue that Trump basically stands for the fact that the hand that makes the corn has the right to put the corn in its own mouth. No change. And the Democratic Party has evolved in various ways. I would say the Democratic plantation today very different than it was in the 1830s and 40s, but nevertheless, if you were to sum up the core principle of the Democratic Party, is it not accurate to say that it's still today summed up by that simple Lincolnian description: you work and I eat. One guy works and makes stuff, and another guy, or through the agency of the government, confiscates that stuff and disposes of it as they see fit. They still stand for the same thing, only in a different form. Now, what about this notion of the big switch? I'm going to zoom into this for just a moment because it's actually very important. What really happened in America is that racism began to decline dramatically after World War II. The reason for this is kind of obvious. Hitler had built his whole ideology on racial supremacy. And so when American troops went into the gas chambers, they went into the concentration camps, they pulled out those starving, emaciated figures. Basically, racial supremacy took a mortal blow. And this fact, which started in the 40s and continued through the 50s, began to have a huge impact in America. And so, for example, Lyndon Johnson realized early on that the Democratic Party in the South had been built on the glue of white supremacy. That's what held the Democratic Party together. And if white racism was declining in the South, what was the future of the Democratic Party? There needed to be a new approach. Barry Goldwater in 1964 opposed the Civil Rights Act of 1964. Now, interestingly enough, Goldwater was not a racist. In fact, he was the co-founder of the Arizona NAACP. He had been involved in the desegregation of the Phoenix schools. But Barry Goldwater was a libertarian. Small government, limited government. And when the Civil Rights Act of 1964 proposed the outlawing of discrimination, not just by the government, but also in the private sector, Goldwater opposed that on libertarian grounds. So he voted against the Civil Rights Act of 1964, and as a result, he won a handful of Deep South states. But he lost the rest of the country. He won his home state of Arizona, and that was just about it. Lyndon Johnson swept the 64 election. So when Richard Nixon came along in '68, Richard Nixon learned from Goldwater's experience. Richard Nixon said, no, I'm not going to campaign for the votes of the Deep South. I'm actually going to campaign for the Sun Belt. And the Sun Belt was the face of the changing South. The South was becoming less agricultural, more industrial. Northerners were moving south. There was tremendous growth in southern cities stretching all the way from St. Petersburg in Florida through Tampa, Raleigh, Dallas, Houston, all the way to Nixon's home state of California. That was the Sun Belt. So Nixon said, I'm going to go after the non-racist vote of the urban South. And I'll do it by appealing to free markets, anti-communism, patriotism, family values, essentially the early phase of the Reagan agenda that emerged later in the 1980s. And Nixon won not the Deep South, which went to George Wallace, the Democratic segregationist. Nixon won the so-called upper or peripheral South. I tell you all this because all this history is now distorted. From the point of view of the left, Nixon was a tricky dick. He made a sort of subtle appeal to Deep South racists to come over to the Republican Party. So when people say this to me, I say to them, I challenge you to cite a single racist campaign statement made in public by Richard Nixon. Let's hear it. If Nixon is campaigning to the Deep South racists, surely he said racist things. Where are they? Nowhere. No one's ever been able to give an example. And so what they say is that, no, Nixon didn't say any racist things, but he used racist dog whistles. And the idea of the racist dog whistle, let's think about it for a minute. The idea of a dog whistle is that Nixon was making dog noises that nobody in the country could hear. They were at such a high pitch that the whole media, the whole country couldn't even hear them, but the racists, who are the dogs, have the heightened antenna that they alone could translate these messages and pick them up. I mean, this is the nonsense that is now masquerading for actual scholarship in the United States. The real proof of the pudding is simply to ask this question. If Nixon converted the racist Dixiecrats to be Republicans, how many of them did he convert? And so in my last movie, Death of a Nation, I say, all right, let's make a list of the Dixiecrats. Who are the Dixiecrats? They're the people who A, joined the Dixiecrat Party, or B, voted against the Civil Rights Act of 64, or the Voting Rights Act of 65, or the Fair Housing Bill of 68. That is the definition of a Dixiecrat. And by that definition, there are about 150 Dixiecrats, congressmen, senators, governors, and so on the screen in the movie, boom, there they are. There are their names, there are all their photos. And now you ask, how many of those dudes became Republicans? And the correct answer is 2. One in the House, Albert Watson, one in the Senate, Strom Thurmond, and every other racist Dixiecrat lived and stayed and died in the Democratic Party, have been lionized by Democrats. There are buildings in Washington, D.C. now named after them, and this is the empirical fact. The beauty of living today is when I talk about this stuff on campus, students look at me like I'm from Mars, and I say, look, whip out your phone, type in racist Dixiecrat, look at all the names, and now count to see how many of these guys switched. So we can today verify this information, which makes us very powerful. We can show that what we're saying is true, and we can show that what they're saying is false. There's a professor at Princeton named Kevin Cruz who has actually assembled a sort of informal list of 150 left-wing historians to refute me on these points. And their strategy is, I would call it, to emit a squid-like cloud of rhetoric to obfuscate the issue. They're masters of obfuscation. And so they'll say things like, well, what about Jesse Helms? What about John Tower? My point is, Jesse Helms and John Tower are not Dixiecrats. We're not asking whether any Democrats became Republicans. We're asking whether the specific faction of racist Dixiecrats became Republicans. Let's agree on our terms before we have an argument. Whenever I talk about slavery on campus, some professor of Romance languages will jump up and go, Dinesh, you're pointing the finger at the Democratic Party, but that's a lie. You know and I know that slavery is an American sin. Americans did it, and there's plenty of blame to go around. Now, first of all, I make the obvious point that America doesn't do things. Some Americans do them, and other Americans try to stop them. Right? And then the way to crush the debate and to win it completely is what I call the incendiary fact. And so here's my incendiary fact. In 1860, which is the year before the Civil War, no Republican owned a slave. Now notice I'm not saying that no Republican leader owned a slave. I'm saying that no Republican in the United States owned a slave. And if that's true, it means that all the slaves in the country, there were 4 million at the time, this was the zenith of American slavery, 4 million slaves were all owned by Democrats. Now, this is the kind of statement that kind of reminds me, if you will, of an atheist who was reading through the Bible. He read it from the beginning to the end, and at the end he made a small note in the margin. He wrote, important if true. Important if true. That's applicable to my statement, important if true. But the beauty of my statement is it's, in a scientific sense, refutable. All you have to do is give me the name of one solitary Republican who owned a slave, and I would have to take it back. And yet to this day, 2.5 years after I made this assertion for the first time, and despite innumerable and tireless effort, Media Matters, you can only imagine all these people doing their very best to ferret out a single counterexample, have not been able to do it. About 6 months ago, a fellow at the University of Michigan wrote me and he goes, Dinesh, I gotcha. Ulysses S. Grant inherited a slave, a single slave, but nevertheless a slave, on his wife's side. And I said, man, that is what I called an almost touché. You almost had me, but I got to point out to you that at the time this happened, Ulysses S. Grant was a Democrat. He became a Republican later. Now, why is all this important? It's important because fake news sits on top of fake history. fake narratives about America, attempts to con us and intimidate us and put us up against the wall. Part of our liberation is not just the ability to read between the lines, to figure out when you're being conned, but also to be able to deconstruct these fake narratives. And so as you arm yourself and equip yourself with knowledge, you become what I call a very dangerous American. You'll notice that the other side is a little bit, whenever you start speaking, they get extremely nervous and agitated because they know that everything they're going to say, you already know. But what you're going to say, they have no idea. And they have no comeback. So they're completely disarmed. It's actually a kind of an exciting notion because it makes you a powerful figure in the American debate. It arms you with truth and with knowledge, and you're the one who actually knows what you're talking about. Martin Luther King has a beautiful line which has always inspired me. It's actually not the line about the content of our character. He says, ultimately, every man must write with his own hand the charter of his Emancipation Proclamation. And I think what he means by this is that in a society of equal rights under the law, we have the right to be treated equally by the government. We have that right. But we don't have any more rights than this. And what we do with our freedom and what we make of our liberty and what we make of our lives, this ultimately is up to us. I was, as part of my penance with the Obama administration, I was sentenced to teach immigrants, mainly Latino, about the English language. And one time, one of my students asked me an interesting question. She said, you're all involved in American politics and we don't understand any of it. What really is the main difference between the two parties? How would you summarize it? What's the core of it? And I realized, I felt a little helpless for a moment because I realized that my normal way of talking, appealing, say, to the American founding or the Constitution, all of that was remote from these people. These are people whose big challenges were things like, how do I buy a ticket to go get on the bus, to get to Target where I can work? So these are people who are operating at the most basic level, and they want me to explain American politics at that level. And so I want to leave you with my thought about how I think American politics can be divided at the simplest level. I think essentially there are two models for people who start at the bottom to move to the top or to improve their life. The first is the model of the ladder, and the second is the model of the rope. So the ladder is the ladder of opportunity, and that's what the Republican Party stands for. Ladders of opportunity. Now the government does have a role to hold the ladder, which means to protect our rights. Some of us are going to get higher or lower on the ladder depending on how we climb, and also depending on factors we don't control, like luck. But nevertheless, the ladder represents, for the most part, earned achievement. And when you get up on the ladder, you can say, this is my life, I made it, I did it. The other approach, which is the Democratic approach, is the rope. And you can think of the rope as a bunch of guys, these are the Democrats, they're on the top of a building, and we lowly minorities and immigrants are all down there, and they let down the rope. And they go, okay guys, hang on to the rope, we're going to pull you up. That's their model. Now, on the first glance, the ladder is less appealing than the rope. Why? Because the ladder you actually have to climb. The rope you're just supposed to hold on. It seems easier. But if you think about it, it soon dawns on you that you're very dependent on the guys who hold the rope on the other end. If they let go, down you go. And so a second point is, if you stick around a little while and kind of watch the rope in action, you begin to realize that a lot of people who take the rope never seem to get to the top. You notice they get to the middle or they get off the ground, and then the people on top of the building seem to hold. They don't pull, they hold. And then it occurs to you that maybe those people don't want any of these guys to get to the top. Why? Because they've got you where they want you. You're in a position of suspended dependency. You're too far from the ground to drop, and you're not far enough from the top to be able to climb on your own. You just hang there. And so I think that for all of us, ultimately we're faced with this simple choice. Do we want an America of the ladder, or do we want an America of the rope? In the America of the rope, you have this guardian class that seems to get all the benefits, that needs us, because they offer us crumbs in exchange for the thing that they want most from us. Not today. We're not in the days of slavery. They don't want to steal our labor. In fact, they want something from us that they think is free for us to give, our vote. And so they need us to vote for them to keep the whole rope mechanism going. But it seems to me that our liberation is to recognize that that's actually not the way. We don't want our destiny to be dependent on them. We want our destiny to be dependent on us. The way forward is the way of the ladder. That is our future. That's how we begin to achieve the same dream that so many earlier generations have enjoyed. That's how we move America for all Americans closer to what Reagan meant when he spoke so beautifully now a few decades ago of what he called morning in America. Thank you very much. Thank you.
All right, I'm actually super excited to announce this next person. So one of the things you have to ask yourselves, especially as minorities, is how do we fix what's happened when people try to destroy the relationship between white Americans and black Americans? It's horrible. I don't know. I've got people that are in biracial relationships in my family. I'm like, what are their kids? Half oppressed, half privileged? And we start repairing it by having the conversation, by inviting them in to have the conversation about race. You don't have to be black to talk about black issues. You don't have to be white to talk about white issues. You just have to have a brain, right? You just have to have a brain and the heart to talk about it. This next person, I don't know how he does it, but he hits the streets and he always will reveal to you really just the extraordinary logic behind white liberals, because they're kind of insane, right? They're offended for us now. We don't even have to be offended. They step out and they're offended for us. So I want to show you his video of a little bit of what he does. This is Will Witt.
Hola amigos, this is Will Witt with PragerU. Today we're at UCLA talking to college students and on Olvera Street talking to Hispanics in honor of Halloween and to see if my outfit is offensive. Dang it. Would you guys like to chat with us today? No? That's what we want to talk to you about. Hola. You find my outfit offensive?
Yeah.
You find it offensive? Do you find it offensive?
Maybe a little.
Do you think my outfit is offensive?
Are you Mexican?
No.
Yes.
I think it reaffirms stereotypes that are offensive to people.
You think people really think Mexican people are like this and carry around marachas?
No, I don't think people actually think that.
Do you find my outfit offensive?
Yes. Yeah.
Why?
Because it's not your culture?
Cultural appropriation? Why do you say that?
Because you're not, like, Mexican.
You think Mexican food is like cultural appropriation?
No.
Someone else's culture that we've kind of taken. Is this cultural appropriation? No comment.
You don't really understand what their culture means and what it means to wear these things, like the hats and the maracas. You know, you sort of have to understand where all of this comes from for it to not be cultural appropriation.
It's not yours.
Can I just ask you, do you like my costume?
I like your mustache.
Do you?
Monthly.
Does my outfit offend you?
You look, no. You look nice.
Thank you. Do you like my costume?
Yes.
Does it offend you?
¿Es ofensivo?
No.
No, nothing. That's good.
Sí. Mi guapo?
This is beautiful.
Beautiful. Acabo. Are you guys insulting me?
No, it's not.
Insulting me in Spanish? Do you like my outfit?
Oh yeah, it's awesome.
Does my outfit offend you?
No, not at all.
Some people get offended by what I'm wearing.
No, it's not. It's not offensive. I think it's you're in the right atmosphere.
Yeah. Lo único dice de mostacho, no original.
No original. Do you know who sold me this?
No idea.
Mexicans.
Oh, really?
And so you're white and you get offended, but then Mexican people who sold me this and made me this don't get offended.
That, yes.
Seems kind of weird, doesn't it?
I love it, actually.
You think it's offensive?
No, not at all.
Some people get really offended by this. Why do you think that is?
I don't know, just you're not Mexican, so people think that you have to be Mexican to wear that.
I'm celebrating Mexico.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Are you Mexican?
I am.
See?
I'm not wearing it.
See? That's okay.
Yeah.
Maybe we should swap outfits.
Yeah, exactly.
Please welcome to the stage Will Witt, Man on the Streets.
Wait till I get my money right.
Can I hold this? So guys, first of all, we got to put the rumors to rest. I'm not black, okay? I've used that joke for every 3 Blexits I've talked at, so I hope it's still hitting. It's great to be here with all of you guys. First, a huge shout out to Candace and all of you guys. Thank you so much. Thank you. It's a crazy world that we're living in now, isn't it? Where these people, the left wants to tell these Mexicans that they are token Mexicans, that they have internalized racism. One of the stupidest things I've ever heard. This is what happens when you're not offended by what the left tells you that you're supposed to be offended about, right? I did another video where I went to California State University, Northridge. Do you have any Californians in here? Yes? I'm sorry, don't cheer, okay? It's the wrong response, don't cheer. We went to California State University, Northridge, and I was with someone who you'll hear from in a little bit, Mike, and I dressed up as a Native American, and he was a black pilgrim. And we went for Thanksgiving, giving out pumpkin pie and trying to talk to people about what they're thankful for. And whenever you go to a university in California, it never goes as planned, and everything went downhill. So a university professor at the university, right, an actual teacher, brought her entire class out. It was like a field trip of 30 students to come and yell at us, yell death threats at us, and then they eventually chased us off campus, and they ripped off my costume. They were incredibly hostile, did not want to hear any different point of view. And so after this happened to me and Mike, I thought this was incredibly strange. So I decided to put these ideas to the test. And so I drove 900 miles with my cameraman to the Navajo Indian Reservation in Window Rock, Arizona, to see exactly what they thought about it. And it's basically exactly as you would expect. Not one of them was offended by cultural appropriation. Not one of them was offended by the Washington Redskins name. And not one of them wanted other people to get offended for them on their behalf. One of them told me, we live in a culture and a society where becoming outraged is a recreational pastime. This is what they actually believe. But the left wants to tell them that that's not what they should believe, and that they're being represented in the wrong way, that they're being oppressed, right? Also, I don't know if you guys, I changed into this like right before this. I thought it would be fun. I hope no one's offended by it. Or you shouldn't be, then it would ruin my whole speech. But nowadays, people are going to college, and they are coming out stupider than when they went in. Yes. I only did 2 years at university until I couldn't take it anymore, and I went and worked for Turning Point USA first, and now Prager University to help change this country. Yes. And you can see exactly what is going on in these places, these indoctrination camps as they really are. To be offended by cultural appropriation, you have to go to university. No one is born seeing me in a sombrero and a mustache and getting offended by that. That is something that has to be taught. Leftist professors are teaching their students how terrible America is, how racist white people are, and above all else, my culture is not your damn prom dress, which is made even more funny when you realize that 80% of college professors are actually white. Virtue signaling academics are teaching impressionable college students what to think instead of how to think, in turn creating an entire generation of young people who think that getting triggered is the norm, who need their safe spaces. So what does all this mean? All these white leftists getting offended, white liberals getting offended. It really means that white leftists are the most racist people in America. They think that their virtue signaling antics are protecting minorities, when in reality, it undermines them. Black people are being oppressed in America. We need to defend them as white liberals. Let's go tell white people they can't have braids. That'll show everyone we're not racist, right? No, of course not. It's actually the exact opposite. Black people aren't asking you to get offended for them. You're doing this so that other white people around you will think that you're woke. But let me tell you something, white leftists. There is nothing woke about caring about the feelings of black people when you then turn around and advocate for the same programs and policies that have kept black people down in America for decades. And the left has duped people with their ideas, okay? I believe that every single person is born a conservative. Everybody is born a conservative, maybe a little libertarian, but born a conservative, okay? I was in an Uber driver, this was a little while ago, and I was in a suit, I look nice, and my Uber driver, she's a Hispanic woman, and she says, oh, you look nice, like, what do you do? I'm like, oh, I'm like a political personality. This is in Los Angeles, mind you. And she says, oh my God, that's so great that we have young people out there getting Trump out of office. Thank you. And I'm just like, yeah, dude, for sure. But I get to talking to her. I don't usually talk politics with my Uber drivers because they find out I'm a Trump supporter and they'll take one swerve and there's one less Trump supporter out there. But I'm talking with her and I find out all of her ideas. And she was against the welfare state. She wanted fathers in the homes. She was against affirmative action. And she was a school teacher when she wasn't an Uber driver. And she didn't want transgender bathrooms to be built in her school. And it was like every single value that this woman had was a conservative value. It was a conservative left or right-wing value. But she had believed that she needed to hate Trump, that she hated Republicans. But it's like all those things that she talks about are the same things that Trump exactly wants for this country. And this is how the left has duped people into believing that they're actually leftists. But most people are actually conservatives, they just don't know it. And thinking about something like affirmative action, I mean, it sounds like a great idea, I guess, but it's racist all the way through. It's basically saying to black people, Hispanics, oh, you're not as smart as white people, so we're going to give you a leg up so you can actually make it. Is that not racism? That's exactly what racism is. But you know why African Americans and Hispanics aren't in the same positions as white people? Because of the economic oppression the left and the Democrats have put on them for the last 60 years. You get rid of the welfare state and you fix the schools in these communities, you won't need affirmative action. You know, a study came out that shows that actually when Democrats talk to minorities, they dumb down their speech. They dumb down their speech so minorities can understand them. Is that not racist? Think about Ocasio-Cortez and that speech that she just had. Apparently she's got an accent now. Very convincing, AOC. Or someone like Hillary Clinton, our favorite politician. Lock her up. But someone like Hillary Clinton, she gets asked, you know, what's one thing you always keep in your purse, Hillary Clinton? Oh, hot sauce. Hot sauce. I always keep hot sauce in my purse. You guys don't? Right? This is pandering. This is pandering to try and get votes. And this is what the left does. This is how they get minorities' votes, by pandering to them. People like Hillary Clinton, who have time and time again put their own wealth and fortune above minority issues, don't suddenly get a free pass because they say, I keep hot sauce in my purse. It's insulting to black people, and it's honestly just disrespectful. The main message, let me start with, I'll tell you a little story. When I became a conservative, I haven't always been a conservative. I was, in high school, I actually ended up working for this Democrat senator, mostly to impress this girl who I knew. But I was also on the left. I thought Obama was pretty cool, so I wasn't that smart either. But everything changed once I went to college. I went to CU Boulder. I was an English major, worthless degree. And I remember in my sociology class, my TA, there's a black girl sitting next to me, and she points at me and says, you are oppressing this girl because of the color of your skin, because of your white privilege, right? And this black girl, she's looking at me, and she's like, I don't know what's going on. This is like really awkward for me. And it was like, I didn't feel like I was oppressing this girl, and she didn't feel like I was oppressing her. But this white TA at a $50,000 a year university gets to come and tell me that I'm oppressing someone. This is exactly how you create a victim culture in America. And so the main message that I want to get across to you guys today is that these white leftists, these liberals, These politicians who claim to have your best interests at heart really don't, and they are using you. As sad as it is to say, they're using you for their own selfish gain. They champion minority struggles as their own to make themselves feel better and virtue signal, but in reality they know nothing about what's going on in your guys' communities. The left has used minorities for votes for too long, and it's time to end that. But you know who does care? Conservatives. Conservatives care, and Donald Trump cares. Yes. Because conservatives understand that when you succeed, everybody succeeds. Conservatives are the party of America. They're the party of patriotism. And we realize that the only way for our country to be the best is for every single person living in it to be the best. And so I'm going to end with this, is that you guys are here today, and you're going to hear from some more amazing speakers. You've heard from Candace and Dinesh already. And why would you be here if it wasn't to take this information that you've learned and spread it out in your communities as much as you can? For you Californians out there who have seen that state, who know what that state is like in San Francisco. I was there a few months ago, and I'm out, and it's a nice area in San Francisco, and there's a homeless man. He's naked, and he's got a needle, syringe of some sort, and he's dancing around high on drugs, and I'm like to the police, like, are you going to do anything? And they're like, no, it's just another Tuesday morning in San Francisco. I'm like, oh, okay. This is what could be, that could be Dallas. That could be anywhere in the world if leftism takes a hold. We've already seen what has happened to Europe. But this is what is going to happen if we don't stand up as conservatives and fight back against fight for what we believe in. So to all of you guys out there, you are going to lose friends for the values that you have. People are going to hate you, but that is part of the bargain, because our values are the values that are going to continue to make America great. What defines every American is not the color of their skin, but the ideas that they hold. And the left has manipulated those ideas into a never-ending struggle to tear down America and keep minorities down forever. It's time for all of us to bring this country back. Thank you, everyone.
I told God I'll be back in a second. Man, it's so hard not to act reckless. To whom much is given, much is tested. Get arrested, guess until he get the message.
All right, guys, so a fun activity that I do all the time, I don't know if you know this about me, but every time I travel, which is 6 days a week, I always wear my MAGA hat through the airports, through train stations. I wear my MAGA hat everywhere. And it's a means to send a message to liberals that they will not control me based on the color of my skin. And I will never not wear the hat. But what's interesting is what they've tried to do to this hat, right? The narratives that are now surrounding a hat. So first you think it's crazy because they're fighting statues, and that's weird because they're inanimate objects. And now they've upgraded and they're going to start to fight hats. So this next speaker loves to talk about people. His name is Mike Ayatiwa, and I want you to see a little bit about what he does.
So what do you think about when you see maybe a Hispanic or someone from the Latino community wearing this hat, or maybe someone from the African American community wearing this hat? What do you think about that?
Well, I think those people are probably stupid. Just as anyone wearing that hat is probably stupid, in the sense that, and I don't mean stupid in a disrespectful way. I mean, like, they don't have the information that is required to, like, form a honest opinion, I guess. Because you don't think that they're smart enough to maybe come to a conclusion that maybe they should support the president? No, I don't think so.
What do you think when you see maybe a Hispanic or an African American wearing this hat?
I mean, like, what was the reason? What was the reason?
They just want to call attention to something that they don't actually believe in or actually know the basis of.
So you don't think that they might actually have legitimate reasons for supporting the president, or you think it's just maybe they're doing it for attention?
Yeah, like a shock factor.
That's true. I think so too.
Even if you're Republican, I feel like you don't have to support him, to be honest.
Yeah, there are Republicans that don't support him, so it's like, why would you?
So some people say that the KKK hood, that this is the new KKK hood. What's your thought when you hear that?
No, I don't think that's comparable at all.
Okay. So why is that?
Bro, like KKK, it's bad. Like, I could wear this on Halloween, like, as a joke, but you can't joke about KKK. You can joke about Trump.
The modern hood.
I know, the modern
So I've heard that before. People have said that the Make America Great Again hat is the new KKK hood. Do you agree with that?
I think so. I mean, it's like the same thing. Like, they're representing the same different thing. It's just a different color.
What a special time to be alive. Guys, please welcome to the stage Mike Ayatiwa.
All right. How are you guys doing? So, yeah, that's what I experience basically when I go on college campuses and I interview students, specifically black students. It's very fun. I always say that interviewing black girls, they give the best answers because you see stuff like that. So, just a little background on me. My full name is Luso Michael Yatua. I'm the son of immigrants. I'm from Nigeria, as I'm wearing this. Was anyone else offended by what Will was wearing? Like, no, I'm just kidding. I gave it to him. I told him to wear it. He didn't want to wear it. But my parents met here in Texas before my dad moved to LA because he got a job. And growing up, my parents emphasized very specific things. They emphasized getting an education, listening to your parents, and not being a victim. I thank God for my mom because she was a Christian growing up. And I would go and see the narratives outside in the world and come back and see the narratives that she was giving. So when Candace Owens says things like, I am a victor, not a victim, you know, I knew that from a very young age, because when it comes to Christianity, if you're a Christian in here, the idea of being a victim does not fit with the left. So, as I was saying, whenever I, talk to college liberals, there's very specific narratives that is given. One of them is that, like you just saw, black conservatives are stupid or uneducated for wearing the famous red hat. And that doesn't really make sense. And these things are being taught on college campuses. I always say that outrage is taught, and it's taught on our universities. It's not being taught necessarily by their parents or anywhere. It's being taught by these professors. A little story is me and Witt went to a university, and Will decided to dress as another character. This time it was an indigenous person. And, the person was telling him that obviously he was appropriating their culture. But guess what? A university professor brought her entire class of 30 students to come out and harass us and tell them that me and Will were racist for what we were doing. That teacher is teaching her students that. Another one is when people talk about, obviously the Democratic Party. When you look at the mainstream media, the Democrats are always heralded as, these good, moral people, and Republicans always heralded as, evil, sinful people. But when you bring out facts and tell them, well, okay, did you know that the Democrats started the KKK and that Republicans were, the Republican Party was founded in response as an anti-slavery party? And goes right over their head. They don't want to listen to it. I was talking to a black gentleman, and I was trying to explain this to him. He was trying to tell me the truth on conservatives. And I said, okay, please tell me your assumption on what you know about conservatives. And he said that, the Republican Party was created, and I interjected and says, to stop slavery. And he was like, I can't have a conversation with you anymore. I was like, why not? He's like, because there's obviously something wrong with you. What's wrong with me? I'm a conservative and he's a liberal. And that's the typical thing that happens when you talk to black liberals on college campuses. They don't want to talk to you. Luckily, I do my best to hide my values, not in the sense where I'm afraid of them, but as a journalist, I just want to get answers like that, as you say in the video, and let people talk. People think that we make them look stupid, but only you can make yourself look stupid. So, I was talking to another black gentleman, and this is another narrative issue on college campuses. And we're trying to explain to him how conservative students on college campuses are repeatedly being attacked, assaulted for wearing a hat. In fact, I saw a DACA recipient supporting Trump, and another Hispanic liberal chick came and smacked it off his head. And he was like, you just assaulted a DACA student that you're probably, saying we need to protect, and you just assaulted me. But she didn't care. And I was trying to explain this to this gentleman, and he was like, I've never seen that. I don't believe you. I've never seen that. And I said, well, maybe it's just because it's a narrative that you're either ignorant to or you're refusing to acknowledge. And he said, no, that's not how it is. And this is how it is, especially in the black community and just all communities. There are narratives out there that if you're not actively trying to find it, you're going to stay in your little echo chamber. And this is a problem even conservatives have. Sometimes, it's like, well, let me try and see what other people are saying. But it's a serious issue on the left, and that's why you see only one narrative always being perpetrated within it. And essentially, his response to me was, okay, conservatives are being attacked on college campuses. Well, black people are being killed. And I was like, well, what? Okay, I guess, but aren't you just, jumping the subject? It's like telling your kids there's kids in Africa, so eat your vegetables. It's a red herring. You're avoiding the subject. And he didn't want to acknowledge that. He's like, no, I'm not. He's like, that's black people being killed. I wish all those happened to black people. Black people are being murdered in the streets. It's like, yeah, but we're talking about college conservatives being attacked on universities. That was the subject. But all of a sudden, you brought in black people. Now we're talking about black people. And that's another thing. To the black liberal, everything is about white people oppressing blacks and blacks being victims. That's the entire narrative of the black community, which doesn't fit. So I want to talk a little bit about narratives I believe that blacks should be hearing. A narrative I really think is important is that for me, as a Christian, my identity is not in my skin color, it's not in my gender, it's not in my sexual orientation. It is in Christ, and that's it. And you guys have probably heard the saying, skin folk is not kinfolk. Yeah, that's true. Skin folk is not kinfolk. But kinfolk will always be Christ folk. And I'm sorry, if I'm walking at night, I live in Hollywood Boulevard, and it's very dangerous. I've literally seen a homeless person be stabbed by some Hispanics. It's like, whoa, what's going on? If I'm walking and I see some sketchy dudes and they happen to be black, I'm going to the other side of the street. I don't care who you are. I don't know you. Like, why? You have my best interest because we have the same melanin? Like, that doesn't make sense. The left wants you to idolize the left wants what you idolize most to be the most important thing about you, which it can be your skin color, your gender, sexual orientation. That's why it's always about women's rights. It's always about, blacks' rights, blacks being oppressed. It's always about, some minority being oppressed somewhere. But if you're a Christian, your foundation is in Christ and not in your skin color, your gender orientation, or your sexual orientation. Because where are you going? At the end of the day, what's important to the believer? At the end of the day, what's important to the believer is when I die, I'm going to be in eternity with my God. And what happens after that, when you have that understanding, it doesn't matter what skin color you are, what gender. They're attacking Mike Pence right now because he says he's the most anti-gay person. It's like, this guy doesn't say anything, but they're just bringing all sorts of things that he's said and done. It's like, this man is the most quiet man ever. It's like, has anyone heard him say a word? I don't know. Like, but he's, and it's just funny to me because it's like, this man is he's one of the most respectful people ever. He refuses to be alone with women who are not his wife. Why? Why would he do that? Why would he do that? I don't know, maybe because, the left is after any man and will, hey, this guy sexually assaulted me. He's like, prove it. The only woman I've ever been with is my wife. Like, that's how it is. That's a smart move. Why does he believe that? Because he's a Christian. So I have a Bible verse. It's Galatians 3:28. It says, there is neither slave nor free. There is no male and female, for you are all one in Christ Jesus. I think if the left understood this and took it into the core of their souls, I think they wouldn't have anything to complain about. I think all their problems would, not that their problems would disappear, but their problems wouldn't be the most important thing about them. We all have problems. Everyone has suffered. Everyone has suffered. But to the left, black people suffer more, obviously. Lastly, the reason why I think that the narratives that the left is perpetuating on the black community, one, I think it's extremely toxic, because if you're like me or Will Witt or anyone that, you know, we go to these protests, we go to college campuses, and we're talking to these students, you know, we're seeing these people being very active politically, protesting everything Trump says or breathes, and it's very negative energy. Extreme negative energy. I used to have a hard time when I first started doing this. I had a hard time being at protests because of very negative energy. I'm a very carefree guy. I don't like, you know, having that energy around me. And I tell people, I try to explain to this girl, I said, if someone came to me and called me the N-word, if I react, I'm giving that person power. And a lot of times on the left, they think they need to react to everything. And in reality, when you react to everything that way, that sounds like control. You're letting other people control you. It's like, why do we say, you know, these euphemisms? We're talking about Blexit, you know, the black exit. You know, there's no strings on me. You know, it's like I'm not chained down. You know, it's like I've left the Democratic plantation. Why do we use phrases like plantation? Because when you adhere to ideologies that force you to constantly have some type of negative energy constantly, you need to react to everything everyone always says. That is control. You're not in control of your own life at that point. And when you try to explain that to people, it's like, I don't know what you're saying. You know, I think we need to react. You know, people are suffering. I need to be outraged. That's what I need to do. But Dr. King said this: I have decided to stick with love. Hate is too great a burden to bear. And there are people who truly believe that they need to bear the burden of hate, when that is not a reality. And I think that conservatives need to adopt that principle of, instead of adopting hate, we adopt love, and we continuously be loving. You know, I tell people that the most hate I've seen is not from white people. You know, it's like white people are my favorite people. I tell people that. I love white people. Seriously, I love white people. My roommates are white. Will Witt's white. Like, it's the best. But if we stick to love, it doesn't matter what race you are, where you come from, if you're gay, straight, black, female, male, me-male, whatever, you're going to love that person. You're going to treat them respectively. And I think the conservative movement is doing that. Thank you, guys.
All right, guys. So coming up, we always do a little intermission for a couple of reasons. The first, it's going to be 30 minutes, and we want you guys to talk to each other. We also, in the back, have a booth. You guys know I work with Turning Point USA. And we are doing this fall the biggest black conservative DC weekend ever. And if you are someone that needs financial help to get there, we want you there. No matter what, go to the back, sign up. We will get you there. There's going to be a big show of patriotism, ultimately. I also want to say one quick thing. The most important and effective way to communicate a message, I always believe, is through art. That's why we put together that video. That's why you guys are all wearing colorful t-shirts. We believe that we are turning back on the lights and that we are bringing a cultural movement within the conservative movement. Culture matters. So we will walk you into this intermission with a nice little video that we put together called And Still I Rise. Enjoy.
You may write me down in history with your bitter, twisted lies. You may trod me in the very dirt, but still like dust, I'll rise. You can shoot me with your words. You can cut me with your lies. You can kill me with your hatefulness, but just like life, I'll rise. Out of the hut of history's shame, I rise. Up from a past rooted in pain, I rise. A black ocean leaping and wide. leaving behind nights of terror and fear. I rise. I am the hope and the dream of the slave. And so, there I go rising.
When I look back to before we were together, there was no pressure, no pain, just pleasure. We were young, you took my breath and filled your lungs up. I held my tongue in, took all your poison. You get high, act like I need rescue, and you're walking on thin ice. You don't realize I'm alright tonight. Live your life, you can keep that piece of me. I'll come through, outgrew, don't need you. It ain't how it used to be. You lost out, and now I found that I don't need that piece of me. I'm lost. Falling into emptiness, I've forgotten my mind. Faithless tears that I cried. I lost my whole life. Everything to live for now. I shed my old skin. I thought I'd give in, but loving isn't losing. You get high, act like I need rescue, and you're walking on thin ice. You don't realize I'm alright tonight. Live your life, you can keep that piece of me. I've come through, outgrew, don't need you. It ain't how it used to be. You lost out, and now I found that I don't need that piece of me. I'm lost. I'm alright tonight. Live your life, you can keep that piece of me. I've come through, outgrew, don't need you. It ain't how it used to be. You lost out, and now I bet I don't need that piece of me. I'm lost. Yeah, you lost out, and now I found. You get high, act like I need rescue, and you're walking on thin ice. You don't realize I'm alright tonight. Live your life, you can keep that piece of me. I've come through, outgrew, don't need you. It ain't how it used to be. You lost out, and now I found I don't need that piece of me. I'm lost. You don't realize I'm alright tonight. Live your life, you can keep that piece of me. I've come through, outgrew, don't need you. It ain't how it used to be. You lost out, and now I found I don't need that piece of me. I'm lost. Once upon a younger year, when all our shadows disappeared, the animals inside came out to play. Faced with all our fears, learned our lessons through the tears, made memories we knew would never fade. One day my father, he told me, son, don't let it slip away. He took me in his arms, I heard him say, when you get older, your wild heart will live for younger days. Think of me if ever you're afraid. He said one day you'll leave this world behind, so live a life you will remember. My father told me when I was just a child, these are the nights that never die. My father told me. light a fire they can't put out. Carve your name into those shining stars. He said go venture far beyond the shores. Don't forsake this life of yours. I'll guide you home no matter where you are. One day my father, he told me, son, don't let it slip away. When I was just a kid, I heard him say, when you get older, your wild heart will live for younger days. Think of me if ever you're afraid. He said one day you'll leave this world behind, so live a life you will remember. My father told me when I was just a child, these are the nights that never die. My father told me. These are the nights that never die. My father told me.
Tryna get up in my head, now that's a headache. I just wanna make the best shake. She wanna spend some time, now that's a Rolex. Shot her at the like it's stolen. Met her at the West End with the best day. Kissing, they was sweating, doing lip things. Had to get up in that lit thing, yeah, the lit thing. Let her rock the mic, yeah, no lip sync. They say that it last call, so let ball. I'm tryna have that thong on that paw. Throw it back like retro, like it's retro. Baby, let's go, girl, let's go. Take it to my room, yeah. Ain't no need to talk with it. Throw me in the lights, oh, baby, I know what to do with it. Give her what she want, now she wants it. All the time on, baby, don't hurt me, hurt me, hurt me. You know I like it naughty, naughty, naughty. When they hit me, well, it's sexy, sexy, sexy. Won't let me if you let me, let me, let me. Don't hurt me, hurt me, hurt me. You know I like it naughty, naughty, naughty. When they hit me, well, it's sexy, sexy, sexy. Won't let me if you let me, let me, let me.
Tryna get up in my head, now that's a headache. I just wanna food, get my cake. You wanna spend some time, that's a Rolex. I'ma ride a tea like it's stolen. Met him in the hills out in LA. Took me for a cruise, yeah, Penelope. Had to sit up on that big thing, that big thing. Super duper freak, yeah, like Rick James. They say that it's last call for that bar. Tryna get that peach mix, Moscato. Make it clap like when the home team score. Baby, don't you hurt me like before. Take it to my room, yeah. Ain't no need to talk when this thing in your mouth down south, baby. You know what to do with it. Gave him what he want, now he wanna hit your girl all the time. Oh, baby, don't
hurt me, hurt me, hurt me. You know I like it naughty, naughty, naughty. When they hit me, well, it's sexy, sexy, sexy. Won't let me if you let me, let me, let me. Don't hurt me, hurt me, hurt me. You know I like it naughty, naughty, naughty. When they hit me, well, it's sexy, sexy, sexy. Won't let me if you let me, let me, let me.
all these bitches begging me to pass the baton. All these bitches trying to fit my crown and my wand. They just still my sons, get your sonogram on. Just a nick of time, I did the cover of time. Getting $1 million just to stand there and rhyme. Even if you was Curry, but there's still a LeBron. But let's face it, I'm Curry with rings like LeBron. Added my rings up, that's Mike Jordan. I told this just when I switched my flow 4 times. I'd be damned if a bitch can eat off mine. All this cake make a broke, but can beat off, huh? I'm just looking for a man who could be a wow.
Don't hurt me, hurt me, hurt me. You know I like it naughty, naughty, naughty. When they hit me, well, it's sexy, sexy, sexy. Won't let me if you let me, let me, let me. Don't hurt me, hurt me, hurt me. You know I like it naughty, naughty, naughty. When they hit me, well, it's sexy, sexy, sexy. Won't let me if you let me, let me, let me.
changes today. We figured out that the left is using us to secure votes and to keep themselves in power and to keep themselves rich.
The mission of conservative values will resonate with people who are here and inspire them.
We hit the home run when we were born and raised in America. There are 7 billion people in the world. The majority of them would trade places with us if only they could.
My country tears of thee. Sweet land of liberty of thee I sing.
Minorities do not belong to the left. We belong to nobody but ourselves and God.
No, we are not satisfied, and we will not be satisfied.
We are separating ourselves from the victim narrative.
The Democratic Party has been able to tell and dictate for too long who we are.
It's a mentality that you don't have to think a certain way just because you look a certain way.
It is not racism that is keeping us out of the American dream. It's the lies that we've been told.
We have to put this to a stop, and we have a president that's willing to do it.
They are trying to turn us into single-issue voters, and they will never take our vote.
This is our official Declaration of Independence from the left. This is the beginning of the revolution, and we are going to save America.
To remind America of the fierce urgency of now. Now is the time.
All right. Back to your seats, people. Don't worry, we'll have time at the end if you're still signing up. We'll have time at the end. All right, well, this next speaker doesn't need much of an intro because he helped open the show with me, but I just want to stress again the importance of talking about men, the importance of responding to the rise of radical feminism, because it is radical and it's angry, and everything that they're advocating for directly impacts our communities. I find that I get a lot of bad slack in the press, especially it's been hard for me to connect with a certain audience, but Brandon Tatum has a way of speaking like a father, and people really respond to him. And fatherhood and father absence, in my opinion, is the #1 issue that is facing not just the black community, but all communities. All communities. We need men, we need fathers. So without further ado, please welcome to the stage, give a big welcome to Brandon Tatum.
Kane is in the building.
What's going on? All right, I'm going to jump right into this thing real quick. It is invaluable for us to understand our position as men. I want to talk to the men right now. I want to employ power into the men of this country. Let me tell you this. Our forefathers fought, was beat, and bruised for us to live in a great country like we do today. And we live in a great country. We need to start taking responsibility for our position as black American men. We always talk about fatherless homes. We always talk about the stats. We were at 22% way back in the 60s, and now we're at 70%. I'm going to go on a limb and say that the responsibility of fathers being in a home is with the men. If you have enough courage, if you have enough, whatever you want to call it, to lay down, then you need to have enough to stay and take care of your doggone children. And I know it feels like chastisement, but I feel like that the only way that we're going to actually see a revolution, we're going to actually see us get back to what we should be in this country, is if we start with the responsibility of the man. I don't want to hear no more excuses. I don't want to hear nothing about the crack cocaine epidemic. Listen, if you love your brothers and sisters like you say you do, there's not an amount of money in the world that can get you to give a drug to your brother. There's not an amount of money in the world for you to pick up a gun and shoot your brother. That is a responsibility that's held by us. We have to stand strong in that principle. I'm sick of us hearing about or people talking about, oh, when I go to a job, they're going to discriminate against me. Man, what about white privilege? I don't want to hear a lick of that crap anymore. You're stronger than that. You're more powerful than that. I'll tell you what, I go to a job interview and someone don't give me an opportunity, I'm going to apply for every single job on the block until I get a job. I don't need no handouts. I don't need your excuses. I'm going to go harder than everybody else for that job. And if you go hard and you put yourself in position, you will be successful. I don't want to hear no more rhetoric about making excuses for young brothers walking around with their pants sagging. No more excuses. Pull your doggone pants up and become a man. Martin Luther King wasn't walking around with his pants hanging down. Martin Luther King stood up as an example. He stood up as a strong man. He fought for what he was fighting for until his death. And we have become so cowardice, and we're allowing them to demasculate or emasculate men in this country. Listen, God has already told us and given us the recipe for success. Jesus is the head of the church. The man is the head of the household. We wonder why in our culture, in our society, that we see so many problems. And it's not the women's fault, right? Women are been going hard for I don't know how many years. Women are up at the church on every Sunday praying. We need to get our butts at the church and start praying. We need to be the first ones in the church and the last ones to leave. We need to be leading the sermons. We need to be going out into the communities. I cannot stress it enough how invaluable my father was. Now, I love my mama. If it wasn't for my mama, I probably wouldn't have the character that I do today, because she used to tell me, baby, tell the truth. Say how you feel. And mama got me to that point of feeling comfortable in my skin, but it took my father to not just be a verbal representation of what a man should be, but a physical representation of what a man should be. A representation of what a man should be. My father was strong. My father didn't take no mess. My dad didn't want to hear no excuses. You tell me you late to school? Then you should have left earlier. You got a flat tire? Well, you should have brought a spare. You got two? You should have left early enough to bring two spares and walk to school on time. That's what a real man does. My daddy don't waste his time talking. He don't talk a lot. He's all about action. My daddy started on the fire department here in Fort Worth, Texas. Started on the fire department when he was 18 years old. He talked to me about that there was discrimination that would go on the fire department. And you know what his mentality was? It wasn't a victim mentality. Oh, man, the white man, they not going to give me opportunities. My dad said, you know what, you'll be working for me one day. So you better watch the way you treat me. And you know what? They were working for my dad because he made all the way to the top. Retired as a battalion chief. And now he is the chief of the Waco Fire Department as we speak. But you know, my dad didn't have his father around. He didn't have his dad. My grandfather left a long time ago. And what hurts my heart is the fact that people don't understand the residual effect when fathers aren't there. They don't understand the residual effects when people go to prison. I remember my family, we used to have family gatherings, family dinners all the time. And then people started going to jail, and now we don't even meet. Now everybody's moved away. How does a young man... See, my dad did a great job at this, but how does a young man learn how to be a father when he don't have an example at home? And what happens is, and I know Candace talks about this a lot, what happens is young men are seeking love and appreciation and support from another man. It's not a matter of sexuality. It's a matter of a necessity from a human being. God has conditioned us to need and support, or need the support of another man. I'm speaking to men. And when you see young brothers without their fathers, they find and attach themselves to other men. The problem that I'm seeing in our society and in our culture is that we're attaching ourselves to the wrong types of men. We're attaching ourselves to dudes in the hood because, to be honest, in some cases, the dudes in the hood the only one show you some love. The dudes in the hood the only one that got your back. Because mama can only be so strong, but she can't fight for you. She's not going to go blow to blow with people. So we attach ourselves to the wrong types of leaders in our community. Then we see the leaders that's on TV every day. They're fake. They're phony. They're fraudulent. They don't care. They're opportunists. They don't care about the black community. I remember when we had 400 black conservative leaders from all over the country go down to the White House. And everybody was passionate. I ain't never seen so many black people wearing MAGA hats in my life. But everybody went down to the White House. They treated us with respect and dignity. Everybody was proud. We marched from our hotel to the White House. It was one of the proudest moments I ever had in my life. And then what do? They put another black man, Al Sharpton, on the television to tell the world that we have been paid to wear those hats, that we have been paid to go to the White House. And that's a doggone shame. Those people need to be called out every single chance we get. I'm not here to be a Debbie Downer, but I want to implement power to you. I want to extend power to the young men in this room, because you need to go out and be an example to other young brothers, because you are the leaders of your community, believe it or not. Some of these other young brothers are hurt. They still haven't been able to overcome the brainwashing, but you have been delivered. And I believe that this is not only a natural experience, but this is a godly experience. This is a spiritual experience. Two things that have happened to me that has revolutionized my life. One was when I got saved, baptized in Jesus' name, and I got filled with the Holy Spirit. And the second thing is I woke up to the reality that I'm actually a conservative. I'm not a victim. Nobody's going to hold me back or tell me nothing. I'm a grown man with responsibilities. When I woke up to that fact, I became more successful. I became more loving. I became more dedicated to patriotism in my community. Most of y'all know I was a police officer. That was one of the greatest decisions that I ever made in my life. The first time in my life I saw a hero when I did a ride along that inspired me to see a man go from changing a flat tire to saving a kid's life. Going 80 miles per hour down the road, no thanks at all. A thankless job. I remember going out, and I have a young son. I remember thinking to myself that I'm willing to risk everything for my community. My dreams, my goals, my future with my child. I'm willing to risk it all to protect and serve my community. And we really, young men, I'm talking to y'all, and young ladies, tell your boyfriend when you get home, or your husband or whatever. Y'all can tell them, show them this video later. But we need to get back. And I'm not going to say too much about it, but we need to get back to understanding our position in serving. We want people to serve us. We want to sit around and say, what can the country do for me? Instead of saying, what can I do for this country? What can I do for my community? And that's something that's very, it holds dear to me in my heart, that I want us to get back to that. I want us to be strong again. I want us to stand up and be leaders in our communities. I want people to come and look to us for advice and guidance. Young brothers, you are the ones. You are the ones. You are the chosen ones. And we need to continue to be bold and stand up. I know it's hard. See, I live sort of a cush life when it comes to exposing the fact that I support the president and all those things. See, I live in a community that's a red community. I live in a community where I don't have to deal with a lot of drama if I don't want to. Online don't mean nothing to me, all right? That's a bunch of talking. And I tell you what, ain't nobody gonna try me in person. I just want to be honest with y'all for a minute. But you got to be strong, because people are looking to you to be that example. I wear my Trump hat everywhere I go. I stopped wearing it lately because it don't match my outfit that good. But everywhere I go, I wear my hat, and it's not to trigger people and all this stuff. It's to let people know that I'm strong in my convictions, and I'm going to stand for what I believe no matter what. And I always tell people, do you think that Martin Luther King really felt like going through all that drama? That man was a man of God. He had a lot of influence. He had a great family. I think he could have had a legacy, whether or not he stood up in front of the world or not. He was a great man. But he understood that it was his position to do something that's greater than himself. It was his position to lead the world like God wanted him to. I use that same idea when I talk about the president. I talk about President Trump. Do you think a billionaire want to put his billions aside to come and be ridiculed and lied on for no reason? Do you think he really wanted to do that? He probably didn't. He could be living a cush life, doing this thing. But he said, I'm going to do something that's greater than myself, because I understand that what I'm going to do now, the sacrifices that I make now, are going to help generations to come. And Y'all can get that a round of applause. And the last person that I love the most, well, you think Jesus wanted to do that? Look how they beat him. Look how they beat him up. Look how they lied on him. I'm not trying to compare Jesus to Trump, but I'm saying that haters are going to do the same thing no matter who you are. When they go to judge him, they lie. They come up with stories. They have nothing against this man, but they're afraid of that man because he stood up and he was strong. He stood up on principles no matter what they thought of him. He stood up and he taught young people, and he labored. He could have been a god, I'm saying in a sense of walking and being popular and having all the money in the world, but he didn't. He put that aside to humble himself. That's what we need to do. Humble yourself. And Jesus, knowing that he would die at the end of it, he still did it. He still made that sacrifice. And I think that we need to do the same thing today, young brothers. They may talk about you. They may talk trash on you. They may want to put their hands on you. But you got to understand that if you don't stand up now, if you don't put your best foot forward right now, we're going to lose our community. We're going to lose our community. And I'm not going to put it on the backs of the women. I'm not. And I'm not saying that they're not capable. I had a great mom. She would actually fight people on my behalf. Literally. I've seen it. Let me tie my shoe. I've seen it. But what I'm saying is that we need to understand our position, and we need to stand strong. And the reason I said that, and I think I repeated it 3 times, because when you say things 3 times, people begin to get it in their mind. I want the repetition to stick with you. If you don't remember nothing else I say, you don't remember me tying my shoe and none of that stuff, I want you to remember that it is your time. And I'll finish with this. I say this everywhere I go. I tell the story about Wolverine, right? I'm going to do it real quick. You know Wolverine, he pull out the spikes, and he's just a bad mamma jamma, right? He whooping butt. Everywhere he go, he whooping everybody butt. But at the beginning, it seemed like he getting his butt kicked, right? You're like, come on, Wolverine, get up. You're supposed to be the hero. They whooping your butt. He ain't healing right and all this other stuff. But it seems like he recovers. And then when he recovers, he whoop everybody. Like he ain't never started fighting. And then you're like, dang, you know, I always think that Wolverine will lose, you know, but he always seems to win. And then when I look at the situation for what it is, I say, you know what? They already wrote in the script before he started that he was going to win in the end. And I honestly believe, as sure as I'm standing on this stage, that God has already written in the script that when you start, he's already written out your success in the end. Beyond the doubt or insecurity, you know that when you go out and you employ the things that I told you, that in the end of everything, you will win. Thank you, guys. God bless you.
I feel like the men and the women needed to hear that, right? We needed to hear that. We needed to bring back strength into the community. We also needed to hear that Wolverine be whooping them butts. If there's one thing you remember that when you walk out of here. This next person has become a really great friend of mine. His name is Rogan O'Handley, and I'm so happy. There's so many people that are fighting just so many different fronts of the same war. You know, I do what I do. I'm on stage. You know, there are people that give money and donate to causes to make sure that we can have a voice. It takes so many people to win a war. There are people that are online making memes to take really complex issues and break it down into just a funny meme. And Rogan O'Handley is one of those people. How many people know DC Drano on Instagram? Yeah, he actually has a real name. It's not DC Drano, it's Rogan O'Handley. And I want to show you a video of what he does.
Hey everyone, DC Drano here. So in my last video of me walking through Hollywood with my MAGA hat, I wanted to send a message that we the people are reclaiming our streets from leftist political thugs like Antifa. That video did pretty well, but I kept reading in the comments of, oh, you only walk through Hollywood. Why don't you try walking through Compton and see what happens?
Compton gets a pretty bad rap. Most people wouldn't drive through here without a Bible, a prayer, and a bulletproof vest.
Well, Let's do it. Today I'm going to be walking through Compton with my MAGA hat. I'm not bringing any weapons or any protective gear. It's just me, my camera, and a damn important message that I want to send to mainstream media, Hollywood celebrities, and these corrupt political leaders.
Yo, Dre, what up? I got something to say.
Without further ado, I'm sorry, guys, he's not going to be here. He actually got shot in Compton. I'm kidding. With Rogan O'Handley, also known as DC Drano.
Thank you, everybody. Is that what my voice really sounds like? Yeesh, sorry. A lot of you are probably thinking, why would you do that? You're crazy. And you would have a lot in common with my mother. But I said, Mom, listen, this is your fault. She's like, what? I said, growing up, watching you with 3 kids, by yourself, no college degree, working multiple part-time jobs, waitressing, cleaning toilets, cleaning houses. She had no choice. You know, we even lived on welfare for a little bit. But watching her do what she did to raise her kids, you know, I learned that it's not about talking the talk when it's something you believe in or something you have to do. It's about walking the walk. So that's what I did. I took a walk. Not a walk I would recommend. And some people ask, you know, why did you do it? Were you just trying to provoke people? Were you trying to troll the libs? Kill yourself? I don't know. I said, no, it's none of that. I wanted to do something that would show just how much I believed in the message that I delivered at the end of that video, right? So it's not about the walk. It was about my speech at the end. And I found the safest spot I could in Compton. It was like a parking lot, and I was strip mall. Turns out I was wearing the MAGA hat. It was actually a blood territory. So got lucky there. But I gave a speech at the end. I went to Compton City Hall, which was symbolic, but also right next to a police station. And I talked about what I thought Trump was going to do to be the best president for black Americans in this country since Abraham Lincoln freed the slaves from Democrats back in the 1800s. I said his economic policies are going to juice up the economy, that he's going to renegotiate these trade deals, and it's going to bring middle-class jobs back from overseas into America, that he's going to reform our prison systems, and that he's going to do more to unify this country along racial lines than Obama ever could. And you know what? It's only been 2 years, and I've already been proven right. He signed an executive order that's allocating billions of dollars in investments into low-income communities, okay? We have almost record low food stamps, but record high wages. Record low unemployment for black and Hispanic people, and record high optimism. The American dream is being restored right now, and we all benefit. So the Secretary of the Housing and Urban Development Administration, a guy named Dr. Ben Carson, about a week ago, I think, he said he's going to put out a policy that is going to say illegal immigrants can no longer live in federal public housing.
They think it's over 75,000 homes across this country that illegal immigrants are living in when we have record homelessness in Los Angeles and San Francisco. Those units are going to be opened up to Americans, to Black and Hispanic Americans that deserve them, that paid into the system, and that are rightfully owed that benefit. And I remember when I lived in Los Angeles, who here remembers on Hollywood's, Trump's Star on Hollywood Boulevard, right? Lots of battles there. There was a moment where there was this homeless woman, a Black homeless woman. Do you guys remember this? She held up a sign, and this group of leftist thugs started beating her up. They were kicking her while she was down. They threw her cart. They ripped up her sign. They were yelling at her while she was down, saying, "You got what you deserve. You spewed hate and you got hate." You know what her sign said? 20 million illegals in this country, and homeless Americans are sleeping on the street. And now that's being changed. Thank you to Dr. Ben Carson. And honestly, I hope she's out there smiling a little bit. I hope she heard that story, and I hope she gets some help. But these are historic changes that Obama failed to make. In my opinion, I think he did it intentionally. The illusion of helping, but keeping them dependent on government, and then rinsing and repeating the cycle every year. Oh, we're going to be the ones that help you. Those racist guys, though, oh, no. But it's all a lie. It's all a lie. So for those that don't know me, I am a lawyer. I lived in Hollywood. I went to Northeastern University in Boston. Pretty liberal. Somehow got elected president of student government there. They knew I was conservative, too. Newspaper did not like me. I went to law school at University of Chicago. I lived on the south side of Chicago. I had the same barber as Obama. I'm not even kidding. Pretty good haircut, I gotta say. But I lived on the south side of Chicago, and I could have moved up north and hung out with a lot of my friends, but for some reason, I just wanted to stay there. You know, I was 2 blocks from his house. I was 4 blocks from Louis Farrakhan's house. Kind of a crazy situation. South side of Chicago is very interesting. A lot of beautiful culture, but a lot of corruption, a lot of communism. And I remember living in Chicago, the good part, that the west side was basically a war zone. We all know this, right? And then you would see these parents on TV, just grief-struck, sobbing, begging for help. Their kid just got killed, playing in the park. Drive-by, stray bullet took them out. And they're crying, and they're begging for help. And then Democrats have the nerve to say, we're going to be the ones that help you, and nothing gets done. I couldn't believe it, and that's like what woke me up. I was like, these people are getting screwed over. So I was practicing law in LA, doing entertainment law. I was doing deals with Matt Damon, Ben Affleck, Harvey Weinstein. Don't worry. Nothing. But these people, they would get up at their political rallies, award shows. Hello? Oh, there we go. They would point the finger. People like you, people like me, people like my parents, who did nothing but work their butts off, pay their taxes, take care of their families, and they would say, you white people, you conservative people, you're the real problem in America. You're engaging in a war on women. And then they would praise Harvey Weinstein. You're destroying this planet. And then they go fly home in their private jet. You want a racist wall? And they go back to their mansion surrounded by a wall. Give up your guns, but let me keep mine in my armed security. So I couldn't take it anymore. I couldn't take it anymore. And I started posting on Instagram a couple years ago. And I've got, in a little over 2 years, over 500,000 followers. Just telling the truth. Because fake news, Hollywood, they're all lying to us. And it's something I want to hopefully inspire other people to do. If some random white guy that drives a truck and has a beard can post memes and then ultimately be speaking on a stage for Blexit, anything is possible. Okay. What's interesting is that even though they point the finger at people like me, the white guy that lives in the South, okay, it's Florida, it's not, but to the north, that is definitely the South, not to Texas. I just couldn't take it anymore. And so I decided to move to Florida. I visited for a weekend, and I put in my notice at my job. I had a pretty cushy job. I was working really hard, getting way too much tax dollars taken out. I think I took home like 62% of my money, so I could pay $4.50 a gallon in gas, to drive on roads that broke my suspension, and then to go home and watch politicians say, "You're the bad guy. We're going to help the illegal immigrants, and we hate you, but please continue to give us your tax dollars." 2 days after Hillary got elected, an email went around my firm. We're going to be holding a support group for people that are upset about the election. Adult lawyers needed Play-Doh and kittens. I guarantee they would not have done the same thing if Trump had lost, for Trump supporters. And so I felt like I was living a double life. I was posting these memes and then listening to these people in the hallway just say the worst things possible about Trump. And so I said, that's it. I'm out of here. The money isn't worth it. On the way out, a competitor law firm heard that I was leaving. They didn't know why. I never told anyone. I would get fired on the spot. And they said, can I just meet you for lunch, Rogan? I was like, okay, sure. And she said, what's it going to take to hire you? What would it take for you to come work for me? I said, well, the market rate is honestly like $400,000. That's how senior I was. But I think I'm moving to Florida. And she says, how about this? $500,000, and I make you partner. She could have said $1 million, but I wasn't going to take it. This moment in our country's history is too pivotal to sit back and watch America go off a cliff. This is my public service. I said, we got 4 years to get this right, to protect this president, and to save Black America from 50 years of tragedy. This is our opportunity. This is what Blexit is all about. The time is now. It's right now. You can't put this off. You've taken the first step. You're here. And I thank all of you, and I respect you for that. I want you to take the next step after this. I want you to stand strong and support this president and support this movement, support his policies, support his successes, because this is our one chance to get this right. They aren't going to let Trump get by again. So we need to stand strong and get this done. I want to tell you a quick story before I finish. I've been doing some college speaking. I've talked at Kansas State, Colorado University, Arizona State, all within like the last 3 days, to be honest, it feels like. But I was speaking at Towson University, which is right outside Baltimore. Baltimore has had some really tough times. And the speech got interrupted by Black Lives Matter. There's about 15, 20 people. And they started chanting, and they said, "Why are you anti-black?" And I'm like, of all people to call anti-black, probably not the best choice. But I wanted to talk with them a little bit. They came in with rage, but I came in with love and dialogue. And I talked with them, and we talked about some police brutality issues, and I said, I'm just curious. How many people here think the Democrat Party has actually helped Black Americans over the last 40 years? Not a single one of them raised their hand. I was shocked. And I said, so why are you so mad at me? Why are you defending them? And I could see their brains that just turn over. They're like, wait, what am I doing? But what that showed me is that we have an opportunity. We have Candace Owens leading this charge, and we have these people open to this solution. They are open to it, I promise you. If Black Lives Matter in Baltimore doesn't support the Democrat Party, then nobody really does when it comes down to it. So we've got this one chance. This is our revolution. This is a revolution. It's a peaceful revolution. It's a revolution that I don't think we've really seen since the 60s, 70s. And I didn't think that I was going to say this tonight. I kind of went back and forth with it. I think Candace Owens is our Martin Luther King. Once in a generation. We're so lucky to have her. So just know that y'all are a part of history right now. This is going to change the country. They're going to write about this in history books. So let's get excited. Let's support President Trump. Let's support Blexit. Let's support Candace. And let's stop talking the talk like the Democrats, and let's start walking the walk. Thank you.
Yeah.
You guys, did you guys know that I'm turning 30 at midnight? It's my birthday. This is my Blexit birthday party. Just saying. It's okay. You guys are going to celebrate with me in a little bit. We got 2 more speeches, and then we're gonna have some fun. So a big conversation that we need to be having is just this this war on Judeo-Christian values in this country, because that's what it is. It's a war on our values, right? I think there's something wrong. They're mocking God. I ask myself all the time, why are they mocking God? Why has it become acceptable to mock God? What a bizarre thing. Joy Behar laughing at Christians. And that's mainstream. It's not just for Joy Behar. That's mainstream across the board, right? That's why the left worships Hollywood, because Hollywood believes in no one but themselves. They're narcissists, right? And the reason is because they want to grow government, right? If you want to grow government, you have to make sure that you start making sure atheism is permeating society. You have to make sure people believe in nothing because they want the government to replace God, okay? Remove the father from the home, remove structures, remove anything that makes sense, and leave people alone and desperate. They want people, instead of saying, well, I'm going to pray about it, I'm going to go to the government about it. This war. And there are various movements that are being hijacked, various groups of people as they separate us more and more and more. They've hijacked feminism. They've hijacked the LGBT movement. And I've been looking for voices to break through. And I was looking up one day, and I saw a gay man for the first time, because the LGBT movement is so left. It's so left, right? And they say the Christians must bake us a cake. And it's angry. It's no longer about anything anymore but anger, this leftist dogma that they're trying to preach. And I saw a voice break through and begin defending Christian values, right? This next speaker does that. And what tethers him is something that I want him to talk to you about. What tethers him is that he doesn't just love God first and foremost, but he loves this country.
Please watch this video of my dear friend, Rob Smith.
I think Democrats use identity politics to keep people in line, to keep black people in line, to keep people in line. I'm black and gay, and I've seen them use the same tactics for black people as they do for gay people. The media is drunk on the president. They are drunk on Donald Trump. Anything that they can possibly say to make this administration appear negative or racist or anything like that, they go for it. Don Lemon went from an anchor at CNN to the chief overseer on the Democratic plantation. What they're doing is they're trying to send a message to any other black American, to any other black conservative that supports the president, that this is what we will do to you if you are vocal about that support. What we hear every day from people who don't support the president is that he, gets support from white supremacists, white nationalists, etc. I was in a room full of hundreds of young black conservatives that did support the president. For you to call it a minstrel show, you are doing what every other black person is doing right now to anybody who dares to espouse
That's not true.
conservative. You did. You just did it. And
It is
first
a
of all,
minstrel show.
Kanye West talked about a lot of different things. He talked about the relationship between black people and the police. He talked about basically supporting the president. He talked about making America great right now. I've lost friends since coming out as a Republican.
Really?
People do not understand it. And these are the left that's supposed to be so tolerant and so inclusive, and these are the people that were the first to shun me when I came out as conservative.
Well, we have
foolishness is actually voting for
Are you going to let me finish, or are you going to interrupt because you don't get my point?
Okay, well, you were just insulting what he's,
You really
doing
were.
by calling it
Foolishness
foolishness.
is voting for the same party for decades and having nothing to show for it. What you want to do is you want to make it so controversial for any black person to have anything to do with this administration.
That's that
the
it
media
controls the media.
has Trump derangement syndrome, and I think it is terminal. I think that they want to push out
Trump
anything that is negative about this person because they know it gets clicks. I will tell you, and I will tell you, Trish, if I thought for a single solitary moment that the President of the United States hated me for being black or hated me for being gay, because I am both, I would never have gone to that event. I never would have gone to that lecture.
Please welcome to the stage Rob Smith.
Work it, make it, do it, makes us harder, better, faster, stronger.
Wow. Is this thing on? Okay, great. We're good. Welcome to. Been here for a while, but it is so amazing to see you. Let me tell you a story, first of all, before I get into everything. What I want to talk about today is I want to talk about the military. And I really wanted to challenge myself to not own the libs, to not talk smack about the Democrats, because, that's easy, and you just saw me do that for a couple minutes. You see me do that a lot on Fox News. But what I wanted to talk about today is love. So what do I have love for? Why do I love America? Why do I love these things? I love God, of course. I love myself, absolutely. I love my husband. But what I really love is this country. And I'm going to tell you a story, and I'm going to tell you why I love America. Because a secret, and let me share a little secret, that I was not always this lean, ripped, muscular stud that you see in front of you right now, right? I'm going to tell you a little secret. Once upon a time, I was a fat, black, gay 17-year-old from Akron, Ohio. Think about that. 17 years old, fat kid, butterball, gay, didn't really know what was going on. One of the biggest things that people say about me sometimes that I know are not true, they say lots of things that aren't true, but they're like, of course you are a conservative because you're just some rich kid, right? You just came from a wealthy home and now you just want to go out and you want to talk all this conservative stuff. No, I am from Akron, Ohio. I am from a single parent household. I am from one of the worst public school systems in the country. I am from a place that to this day right now still has people dying in the streets because this is where I come from, and I have to be so open and honest about that. So at 17 years old, I made the decision to go into the military, to join the military, because I loved America, but also because I needed a path. I needed guidance. I needed somewhere to go. And what I also needed was just like Brandon Tatum said before, I needed that male influence in my life. That is not an influence that I had growing up. So I decided to go into the military. 17 years old, I joined the United States Army Infantry. All right, hoo-ah, right? United States Army Infantry. And here is the trick. The very first day I arrived at basic training, fat, black, 17-year-old kid in the deep South, Fort Benning, Georgia, the only black kid in my entire platoon. What we would call white rednecks. They were these white Southern guys, and I was like, oh man, these guys are gonna kill me. This is gonna be so bad. Oh, and they did, by the way. And so let me tell you a story. I'm going to tell you about how a boy became a man, how all of that fat got melted off, and how that weak person was broken down and built into somebody that loves America, somebody that has served America, and somebody that will continue to serve this country for the rest of my life. Now, when I say that I was fat, I mean I was fat. All right? I was a little butterball. And what you have in the military is you have PT, you have physical training. Because we don't want, heavy people in the military. We want everybody to be lean, mean, fighting machines and all that. And you would have a 5 to 7 mile run every single morning. Now, I had never ran a mile in my life, okay, let alone run 5 to 7 miles. So I started off the very first day of basic training, ran in the morning, sweating, crying, puking, all of that other stuff, did not make the run. I fell out. And I continued to fall out every single day. I wasn't losing any weight. I wasn't going anywhere. My drill sergeants called me a fat POS, and they were right because I was. It just wasn't working out, right? And I remember hating everything so much and hating being in the military and hating so much because my life had not been easy thus far, but it had been cushy because I ate a lot of crap and I didn't work out and I did all these things, but I wasn't really fulfilling my full potential. So the one night, and I'm going to tell you, this is the night that changed my life as a 17-year-old kid in the military. I had a little journal that I was writing, and I remember writing in the journal, I hate it here, I hate it here, I hate it here. Well, the drill sergeant found my journal. That old white redneck drill sergeant, he found that journal. And I remember it was me, and it was another guy that I served with, and he was in base training, and he was even bigger POS than me, if that's even possible, to comprehend. And so I remember this drill sergeant, this evil white redneck man, and we were sitting there in that office, and he said, Smith, do you really want to go home? And I looked at him in his eyes, and this is somebody who kicked dirt on me when I was down. I puked on his boots one time. That didn't go over too well, obviously. He looked me in the eye, and he said, Smith, do you really want to go home? And I looked at him. I said, Drill Sergeant Aldbrooks, if I go home, I have nothing. I have nothing if I go home because there's nothing for me there. Whatever is for me to do, whatever is for me to build, whatever is for me to be is here. So I have to figure this out. And he didn't send me home. And you know what? I fell out of the run again the next morning. But you know what? I got stronger and stronger and stronger. And I started making those runs, and I started losing the weight, and I started shooting well, and I started doing all of the things that I needed to be a good soldier. And so there are some people who don't realize why I love America so much. They don't realize, well, you served in the military and you did this. And what I tell them is that you have no idea where I've come from. You have no idea what this country has given to me. When Brandon Tatum and all of these people talk about young men who need support, they talk about young men who need a father figure, that energy in their life, that is what I got from the military because my dad was not home. I got people that showed me how to be a man, how to stand up, and how to stand tall, and how to stand strong. That is what I got from the United States military. That is why I love America, because there is no other country but America where a fat, gay 17-year-old can grow up to become America's favorite black gay Republican. Literally, where can that happen but America? And it pains me that we have a society that is growing up to hate America, to revile America, to talk about how awful America is and how bad it is. And, you know, a lot of you guys may have seen a video that I did on Vice where I debated a lot of black liberals. It was black liberals versus black conservatives. And the funniest thing to me about doing that video is that I said something that is no different than what I'm saying to all of you today, which is it doesn't matter. This is a country where it doesn't matter where you came from. It doesn't matter what you look like. If you put in the work, you will succeed. But apparently that's not a message that goes over too well with the left, because when I say that, I'm told that I have this privilege, and I'm told that you know, that I have privilege and that all this stuff happened. And I'm telling you, when you have a lot of young people, and this is something that is not about black or white or Latino or anything like that, we have a crisis with young men right now. And when you have a lot of young men on the streets that don't have a lot of direction, that don't have figures, that do not have a direction to go to, they will go into the wrong direction. And we see them going into the wrong direction in places like Chicago. When I go to my hometown of Akron, Ohio, we see this, but yet when I tell people about my military experience, and when I tell them what it has done for me, and I make the humble suggestion that perhaps you serve your country for a couple of years instead of bashing it every chance you get, they look at me like I'm completely insane. They look at me like I'm crazy. And I will tell all of those people, and I will tell you right now, that we need to be a country that comes together. One of the reasons that I didn't want to bash Democrats and own the libs and talk about what I love is because I truly believe that we are a country that needs to come together. I know every single person in this room loves America, and you know, I bet some of those liberals love America too. Maybe they just love it in a different way. And maybe what we're all here to do is to show them that it doesn't matter what color you are, and it doesn't matter what your sexual orientation is, or your gender identity, or all of these different things that people try to separate us by. These things may not matter if you love America, because we can all come together in this room, and we have a national identity together because we are united in our love for America, right? And that is what I think the message needs to be. Now, Candace, and let me thank Candace, first of all, because I'll tell you a story about, I came out as a conservative, quote unquote. It's really funny, you have to come out as conservative nowadays. But I came out as a conservative about a year ago this time, right? And I remember, you know, because I used to be in production and advertising, talking to a network executive at a major network. And, you know, I got this meeting. I was really excited. I was like, you know, I'm conservative leaning because I got red pilled a couple of years ago, and I'll tell you about my red pill story. But I'm conservative leaning, and I'm thinking about coming out as conservative, even though I'm black and I'm gay. I don't really think it matters. I'm coming out because I love America. And he looked at me and he said, nah, they ain't ready for that. You need to just go get like a local reporting job or something like that. You need to go do that. Well, I am proud to tell that executive, who will not be named, that was a year ago. And a year from then, I stand right now in this room with all of these amazing patriots that love America with me, and 100,000 followers on social media that love America with me as well, who don't care that I'm black or gay. They just care that I'm a veteran that loves America. And that is what this is all about. I had a conversation with Candace about this whole thing because I wanted to thank her because she was one of the first ones to give me a platform, literally pick me up off of social media and be like, wow, this is cool. You should come to this. You should do that. And I had a conversation with Candace and I was like, you know, you want me to talk about the gay thing a lot, and I'm cool with talking about the gay thing, but I'd rather talk about the military thing and why I love America and all that. And she said, the reason why we have to talk about being black, and the reason why I talk about being gay, and the reason why we talk about being Latino, and the reason why we talk about all these different things that some people decry as identity politics. We talk about these things because when we get through all of these different identities and we break all of that stuff down and figure out that it really doesn't mean as much as we think it does, we find out that our shared identity is as Americans. And our shared identity is as people who love America, and that's the point that we're at right now. So my red pill moment has to do with me being gay. When I became a conservative was in 2016 when I saw a radical Islamist terrorist run into Pulse Orlando, a gay bar in Orlando, Florida, and kill 49 gays and lesbians. It is horrific. It is still horrific for me to think of to this day. And when I saw how the left reacted to it, when I saw how these people who wanted me to be, wanted me to feel like I was under their control because I'm black and gay, and they were the only ones that were going to protect me, and they didn't stand up to that when it happened. They didn't fight for me when it happened. They made excuses for the terrorists, and they shut down people that were having different conversations. And I realized that it is not only my job to get up and to be open and to speak about this as a black man, but I have to start red-pilling these gays. Okay? I have to start red-pilling this LGBT community, because what I see from my community, this community that I love, this community that is strong, this community that has gone through so much in the society, this community is being turned into a community full of victims, and I will not allow that to happen. So when we get rid of all of these labels, and I think that at a certain point we will, we come together as people who love America. We come together in the American identity. And I wish that some of the people who tell me on social media that I'm doing something and it's not real and it's fake and all these people hate you and they really hate you because you're black and they really hate you because you're gay and they don't want to hear about your husband and they don't want to hear that stuff. I wish that all of those people could be in this room right now, because they don't know what we know. They don't see what we see. They don't feel what we feel. What I feel is unity. What I feel is nationalism. What I feel is a love for this country that will continue to burn in my soul, and I will find a way to be of service to this great country and its people as long as I am here on this earth. And I thank all of you for giving me the opportunity, and I thank all of you for helping to lift me up, for helping to lift Candace up, to helping to lift Rogan up, and Brandon, and all of these amazing people, because we feel that love for America. And I thank you so much for all of your support. Thank you.
Can only make this stronger. I need you to hurry up now, 'cause I can't wait much longer. I know I got to be right.
All right, guys, one more talk. It is Sunday, so I think we have to go to church, right? We got to talk about God. It's Sunday. It's okay to talk about God. We're doing that again. We're making that a thing. The pastor was saying to me that I've got to do a better job and connect with the Christian community. It's been a hard journey for me as someone who was raised so Christian and then fell away from all of it during my path down liberalism. I became a really bad, unhappy, miserable person. That's what happens when you fall away from God. That's what happens when you fall into yourself and you believe in narcissism and culture and believe that life is Instagram and it's all about how many likes and clicks you can get. Your life becomes miserable. I say that about all of these leftist trends. Take them as far as they possibly can. Take feminism to the umpteenth degree. The women that say we don't need men. We can do it by ourselves. We don't have to shave our armpits. We don't have to be beautiful. We don't have to be anything, right? Take it to the umpteenth degree. Where does that bring you to? Chelsea Handler, Kathy Griffin. Do they seem happy to you? Right? Nothing the left is selling brings you happiness. That's what they don't tell you. Being a victim, take it to the umpteenth degree. Where does that bring you to? Jussie Smollett. Does he seem to be having a good month to you? Right? Take it to the umpteenth degree. Where does that bring you to? Jussie Smollett. 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 This is what people have to realize, that they're literally selling you and peddling to you your own misery, and you have to wake up from that. I believe that I'm standing on this stage by the grace of God. By the grace of God. Because I did a lot of things during my teenage years that I'm regretful of it, and yet still to be invited back at the moment, I feel I'm an instrument of God. Nothing that I do is being preempted by anybody but God. It is His Spirit that is running in me that tells me that Black Americans have to wake up, that America has to wake up, that we have to save this country, that there is an evil undercurrent happening in this nation. And of course we're going to win because we're on the side of truth and we're on the side of God. God. You know, the left doesn't like God anymore. That doesn't seem like a battle they're going to win. And the person that's going to come on the stage next and close this before we celebrate my 30th birthday is a wonderful, wonderful man who was genuinely saved by God. And his story is so beautiful, and I'm not going to tell it. I'm going to let him come out and talk to you about it. Guys, please welcome to the stage David Harris Jr.
Lay. Sir. Yeah.
Hello, Dallas. Wow. Hello, Dallas. I thought they did everything bigger in Texas. Hello, Dallas. Should I tell you guys? I'm moving here. I'm moving to South Fort Worth at the end of May. I haven't even made that announcement yet on any of my social media channels, so you guys were the first to hear it. Getting the heck out of California. For various reasons. So, meet your new neighbor. For those of you that are here, how many people came from a long way away? Houston's not that far. Who came really far? Where? Fort Worth. I heard somebody came from somewhere. Vegas? Austin? Massachusetts? Can anybody beat Massachusetts? Miami? Man, this brother came from Miami. I met Dom earlier. Colorado. I'm sitting back there, and I'm sitting over there, and I'm listening to these speakers. And I don't know about you guys, all of you. I don't assume for all of you, but God speaks to me constantly. Is that anybody else in here? We got some believers in the house. He's speaking to me about today. He's been speaking to me for a few weeks about today. And I really don't know if every single one of you truly understand how monumental this is. History books will write about this and what it's going to become. They'll write about Candace and how she brought in all of us that were here and some that are not, but started this Blexit movement and pioneered something that absolutely changed the direction of America. I absolutely believe that. You know, we've heard a lot about why we shouldn't just listen to the Democrat Party and the platform. You know, I could tell you I spoke at the first Blexit and I talked about how I almost overdosed on drugs and died. And it was God that was with me in that moment in my ear that kept me alive. I could talk about how my wife almost wasn't here because her mom, at the last minute, got up off that abortion table and walked out, choosing to give birth and choose life instead of fearing being a single mother and bringing a baby into this world. She chose life. We have two amazing, beautiful daughters, 21 and 23, and we just celebrated 25 years of marriage. I could talk about some of the things that you've already heard, but I want to talk to you about what God has been speaking to me about. And I call God Papa because he's a good father. Does anybody else in here know him as Papa? Know him as a good father? I got to talk to you about my Papa today because as much as we're in a battle and a fight for our country, I believe it's a spiritual battle. I don't believe that it'll be won solely with good intentions, with good understanding or good knowledge. I believe it will be won because believers stand in the rightful place of understanding whose they are and who they carry. And they go after that fight and in that fight from that position. If you're not a believer in here, I'm not trying to preach at you. I'm just trying to be myself. Is that okay? If you are a believer in here, then you'll understand a little bit more of what I'm talking about. God began to speak to me about the fact that for a long time, the Christian movement in this country and the conservative movement in this country have been separated. You guys understand that? I personally haven't been to CPAC, so I can't say with 100% certainty. But I don't know that you're going to hear as much about God at a CPAC. And this is nothing against them. It's just showing the difference between the two, as you've heard here today. I don't know of any other movement where the leader of that movement is openly confessing her desire, her need, and her longing to allow God to use her in this movement. And it's a political movement. For far too long, the political movements of today and yesterday and the Christian movements have been separated. I want to tell you that I believe God is bringing those back together. God is reuniting those movements because he's going to cause the believers that understand, before I formed you in your mother's womb, I knew you and I called you. Unborn babies have a destiny. And it is so heartbreaking to me that so many believers vote for a party that supports ending the destiny of those babies. It's even more heartbreaking when so many pastors from their pulpits will openly support a party that supports ending the destiny of those babies. I believe there's an awakening coming, and it must come. And you know how it's going to come? It's going to come through you. There's a reason every single one of you are here today. Not only to hear and be a part of this movement and to hear the messages that have already been shared, but to hear this message and have an opportunity to respond to it. I absolutely believe, I personally would not be alive if it wasn't for God. I wouldn't be here. I literally would not be standing on this stage. I don't know how many of you have an understanding and a realization and a revelation of God like that. That you're not just here to live and breathe and work and be active in certain things, but each of you has a destiny that was written inside of you for this time, for this hour, for this moment in history. And I believe that when you get into alignment with that understanding and revelation, and then you have a heart and a passion to know God as Father. Not as the God that says, don't do this and don't do that, and do this and do that, and you'll be a Christian. No, 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 no. When Jesus was on the cross, he said, Abba, Father. Abba is an intimate form of father, like we would say, Daddy. He knew his Father intimately. How many of you in here is it hard for you to call your earthly father Daddy? A lot of people don't have good relationships with their father. And so it's hard to then try to comprehend God being good and loving you so much so that he's willing to do anything for you. And he wants to actively be working in your life every day. There's a scripture verse in Psalms that I felt like I was supposed to read. It's Psalms 139. And the psalmist writes, "How precious are your thoughts towards me, O God. How vast is the sum of them." He's talking about you. This is a revelation that the psalmist had about our daddy. How precious are your thoughts towards us, O God. How vast is the sum of them. Were I to count them, there would be more in number than the grains of sand on the beach. And then he says, when I awake, you're still there with me. I believe he literally fell asleep counting the stars, comparing every single star that he could count to how much his papa was thinking about him. And then he fell asleep. And when he woke up, he realized his papa was still sitting there thinking about him. How many of you guys understand that's how much your papa God thinks about you? Each and every one of you. He's nonstop madly in love with each of you. And when you realize that, and you truly step into a place where you are crying out inside to say, God, more than this, more than that, I want to know you. I want to be known by you. I want to be able to call you Daddy. I want to know you intimately. I want you to work in my life. I want you to move through my life. I want to see you when I see somebody and I hear your heart for them and have the courage to tell them what I hear you saying about them. God, I want to know you. And I want to be known by you. Can you imagine if all of us in here had that attitude? If every single one of us woke up every day excited for what Papa might do that day, for who we might meet, for who we might encounter. I'm not perfect at this. I try to keep this my mindset and my heart set every single day. I was in D.C. speaking a few weeks ago, and I got in the Uber ride. How many of you guys know you get into Uber and sometimes there's not a lot of conversation? There's just not. So they speak another language, or they're listening to music, or they're on the phone. I get in this Uber, and this gentleman, probably early 50s, mid 50s, he kept talking to me, and I had to go from Trump Tower to Dulles Airport, 30, 40 minutes, and he kept talking to me, kept asking me questions, and I had to pause my own self and thoughts and say, okay, in this moment, God knows we're here in the same car. Maybe he wants me to, maybe there's something going on. Maybe there's something I need to pay attention to. So I was praying, okay, Papa, I hear you. Is there something here that you want me to speak to this man or say to this man? Then I found out he was a believer. We kept talking. Then I found out that he had been hit and ran over by a truck. And he had no feeling in his toes. He had lower back pain. He had shoulder pain. He couldn't put his wallet in his back pocket. He just couldn't do that. He couldn't raise his arm up to his shoulder. It had been like that for 9 months. The first time I prayed for somebody and literally saw God heal them, it was a man named Manuel. He was about 70 years old, and he couldn't raise his arm up to his shoulder. He couldn't even twist his arm. He tore all the ligaments in his shoulder. Fast forward to this car ride. I'm hearing him speak. And I'm like, okay, I think you set me up here. I got faith for that. I got faith, period. But how many of you know, you pray for somebody and his ears also popped open. You pray for somebody and something like that happens. You really got faith for that, right? So I'm like, okay, Papa, I hear you. So I told him, I said, I really think God put us in this car together because I want to pray for you, and I really believe that God wants to heal you. And he said, okay, yeah, well, let's pray. I began to pray with him, and he began to move his arm more than he could. I prayed with him probably 3 or 4 times in the car ride to the airport. By the time we got to the airport, he could put his arm all the way up. He could not only reach his back pocket, but he could reach his other back pocket with his hand. I prayed for his feet when we got out. He said he had no feeling between his toes. It was numb. So I just prayed right through his boot. And I wished he would have took his shoe off, but I didn't want to make him do that. He said, I feel tingling between my toes. How many of you know that's something right there that the world needs, that we all need? It has nothing to do with me. I know who my Papa is, and I believe that he's good, and I ask him daily to use me to reach other people. How many of you want a greater courage to pray for people? How many of you want a greater hunger to just know who you are in God? How many of you want to be the change and actually be aligned with how God created you? And I'm talking to everybody, believers or not. Because I know when somebody's a non-believer, they don't believe. There's a reason why they don't believe. But if you believe you were born for a reason, you were created for a reason, that means there was a creator. And I know my Papa, the creator of the universe, he loves every single one of us like we were his only child. That's an impossible thing. Absolutely impossible thing. Only God can do that. So I believe in this movement that we're in, where we've got politics, we've got the Democrats that continue to attack Christianity and leave other religions alone. They refer to the Christians as Easter worshipers. There is an attack, folks, on Christianity. And what I want to know is, please start that music. What I want to know is, how many of you want more of God? If you want more of God, I'm going to encourage you right now to just stand up. Just stand up and put your hands in front of you, as if God himself was going to give you something. Put your hands in front of you like you're going to receive a gift. Turn it up, please. Turn it up some more, please. Thank you, Father. Thank you, Papa. You're so good, God.
With no point of reference, you spoke to the dark and fleshed out the wonder of life.
Thank you, God. Just receive. Just say yes, Dad.
And as you speak,
just say yes.
100 billion galaxies are born.
Just say yes, God. I want more of you, God.
In the vapor of your
we want more of you, God. We want more of you, God.
And if the stars are made to worship so loud,
we want to know you, God. Reveal yourself to us.
I can see your heart in everything you made.
Everything you made, we see your heart, God.
Every burning star, signal fire.
We want to know you, God. We want to know you more than we ever have known you before. Reveal yourself to us. Holy Spirit, presence of God, we ask you to reveal yourself to us. To every hungry heart in here tonight. Everyone that's hungry to know you more than they have. I pray you to wipe away the clutter of who they think you are, God. And reveal yourself right now. Just say yes. If you want more of God, just say yes. Yes, God. We are here.
For once you were spoken.
Tell him thank you. He's bringing back memories to many of you of times that he came through for you, of times where you were closer to him than you are right now. And he's tugging on your heart saying, I want you back. I want to know you more. I want to know you, my son, my daughter. I want to fill you to overflowing with my presence. I want to reveal to you why I created you in this moment, in this hour. say thank you. We say thank you. We say thank you, God. Reveal yourself, Father. Reveal yourself, God. Let us be the change that this country so desperately needs. Let us be infected with your love, God. Let us know your heart, God. Let us know you, Lord. Like never before, give us a fresh revelation of your love for us, God. We say thank you. We say thank you. We say thank you. Turn it up a little bit. If you're a believer, I want you to praise with me right now. Just say thank you. Thank you, God. Thank you, God. We say yes to you, God. We say yes to you, God. We say more. We want more of you, God. We thank you for your mercy. We thank you for your grace. We thank you for your love, God. We thank you for this event. We thank you for Candace and her heart. We thank you for what you're doing in her life. Keep that music up. Candace, will you please come out here? Candace and George. Keep the music up, please. Turn it up. I saw this taking place, and I heard God say, I want you all to pray for Candace and George. They are in a strategic place and position in our country to do what I believe God has been longing for decades. I believe that God was saying to me, He allowed you to go through things as a young girl. He didn't cause those things. But He uses all things together for good. And it created a toughness, a passion, a desire that is necessary for you to be able to handle this moment. He's equipped you with every single thing that you need. He loves you so much. And He's brought alongside you His son, another son, my brother, to stand in the gap with you, to be armored with you. I absolutely believe that you're going to change this nation. I absolutely believe that you are. It's already begun. It's already begun. But He just wants you to know that He's with you. He loves you. He's never missed any tear. I hear Him saying, He's never missed any tear. He's held every single one of them. And He's using every single tear as ammunition against the enemy. So if you would just hold your hands out to receive. Just hold your hands out to receive. Just like that, Father, we just thank you so much for George and for Candace. God, we're so thankful for them. God, we know that you have positioned them strategically. You've positioned them for right now. That they are breakers. There's a breaker anointing on this couple, on Candace. There's a breaker anointing to break the strongholds that the enemy has had on American people, on the black community, on the Hispanic community for decades. And God, I just ask you to increase it. I just ask you to increase it. If you could start that song again. Increase it even more, God. Increase it more. I just pray you'd give them both fresh revelation of your love. Fresh revelation of your love. Wisdom, God. Strength and courage. Strength and courage. And heavenly insight. Heavenly insight to be able to work as a team. Angelic help. That they would know that they have angelic help for the road ahead. I thank you, God, for them. I thank you for George. I thank you for Candace and her heart. I just pray for a fresh revelation of your love for her today, and even in the evening, even in her dreams, God, I pray you to even meet her in the nighttime, in her dreams, invade her dreams, God, with fresh revelations of your love for her. And we just say protection and covering. Protection and covering. That nothing the enemy would try to do, would even come close to them. That it would all get turned on its head and be used as a stepping stone to allow her to rise closer to what you're calling her to do. We just say thank you. We say thank you. Thank you for Candace. Thank you for George. God bless you guys. Thank you so much. God bless you. Thank you. God bless you. Thank you. And I think to close this out, if we could, I want to do one prayer really quick. You guys can stay here, and I got one little thing for you. I want to do one prayer. Go ahead and keep the song going, just kind of under the radar. This will be really quick. If you are here today, if you don't feel like you're where you need to be with God, if you've been running, or even if you've never accepted the fact that Jesus was a person, a man that walked this earth and died so that we could have a relationship with God the Father. That's the whole reason. It was because he loved you. If you've been walking your own path, trying to do it your own way, and you've been hearing God beckon you, but you've been doing it your own way, I want you to pray this prayer with me. I want you to invite God to be the leader of your soul, the master of your destiny. I want you to pray this prayer with me right now. You close your eyes. Just say this. Just say, Father, I believe that you sent Jesus here for me. I accept that Jesus died for me to pay for my sins so that I could know you. I accept you today. I invite you into my life. Come into my life and help me live for you. Reveal yourself to me fresh, this and every day. In Jesus' name. Holy Spirit, for everyone that prayed that, I just pray a fresh revelation even right now of your love for them. That you will cause all things to work together for good in their life. In Jesus' name. Amen. Anybody in here pray that prayer? Let me see a hand if you pray that prayer. Hands, hands, hands. Wow. Thank you, Father. How many of you felt his presence in here? You feel his presence in here? Don't go anywhere yet. That's Papa's confirmation. So, it is Candace's birthday tomorrow. I felt like we needed to do a little something. So, we have a little video for Candace to enjoy.
Candace, what's going on? I just wanted to say that you are amazing. Everything you do is fantastic. You are truly what this country needs. And we all just wanted to say, kids, what do you say?
Happy birthday!
Happy birthday. I hope it's fantastic. Later.
Hey, Candace, it's Chad. Just want to wish you a happy birthday. Say God bless you for everything you're doing. Thankful that you were born and thankful that you found your purpose in life to make such a difference. It's a huge impact made by an incredible person. Love you, and keep having a bunch more birthdays. It's always bad when you stop having them, so happy birthday. Love you.
What's up, Candace? Happy birthday. So proud of you. Everything you do, you are fantastic. I'm in a lift right now. Everything I do would not be possible without you. Well, almost everything, but you're the greatest, and I love you. Thank you, Candace.
Hey Candace, it's your 30th birthday. I know I shouldn't say that you're turning 30, but I'm so excited for you, and I just want to wish you the happiest of birthdays. And thank you so much for what you do for everyone in the world and in America, and for saving Western civilization, and for taking everyone off the plantation and being the modern Khaleesi. Happy birthday, love you.
Happy birthday to the amazing, incredible mother of the Blexit movement, Candace Owens. You've got so much more to give, and I can't wait to see where you're going.
Hey Candace, I just want to tell you happy birthday. I'm so proud of you. You're such a terrific woman, and I hope that you have many more blessed days. Welcome to the 30s. Love you. See you soon.
Happy birthday, Candace. I'm so proud of you. And millions of people across this country love what you're doing to give them a voice. I believe that you were born to do this, and today is a celebration of that destiny. Hope you enjoy it. Happy birthday.
I'm so glad and honored to have someone like Candace Owens in my life and on this planet in this day and age. I wish I was there with everyone having a great time at Blexit. And happy birthday, Candace. Much respect.
Is somebody having a birthday today? Happy birthday, Candace Owens. You know, how old are you right now? What, 19, 20? The heck, you look 18 anyway. Hey, best of luck. Keep going. I got my good eye on you, Neil. Happy birthday.
Happy birthday, Candace. I hope you have the best birthday in the history of birthdays. You earned it, girl.
Happy birthday, Candace. We love you. Thank you for everything you do. Hope you have a happy birthday and a wonderful future.
Love you, Candace.
Hey Candace, happy birthday. Hope you have a very successful event and that you spend your birthday celebrating with other conservatives that share your vision.
Happy 30th. It's very exciting and we're thrilled to be a part of it. Happy birthday, Candace.
Candace Owens, my sister, you are amazing. God is using you in such a mighty and powerful way. The history books will read about how America was changed because of your impact and because of your heart. I pray for you often. I love you. I love your message. Happy birthday.
America, Jesus, Candace. The three things in this world I love the most. Happy birthday, baby. We're going to have a great event at Blexit Dallas. I could not be more excited. And we're going to have a great day. I love you, babe. Happy birthday. Happy birthday.
Oh, you guys, what an amazing way to end. I had no idea. Thank you so much. That was so sweet. I'm waving goodbye to my 20s. I couldn't be happier to be entering my 30s. I feel like my 20s were filled with anxiety. Wasn't sure what I was supposed to be doing or where I would land. And I'm so happy to welcome this decade with my amazing fiance, the amazing Blexit ambassadors who do this for free. Just so you know, these people travel the country and speak on stage, and I do not pay them because I can't afford to pay them. All of you guys have been a blessing. I wouldn't be here without each and every one of you sharing my videos, telling me that you believed in this movement, that it could be done. Buying t-shirts online, I feel like the most ordinary part of an extraordinary experience, and I'm trying to get through this without crying. But I love you all genuinely. It's been the happiest 2 years of my life. It's been a fight, but it's a fight that I feel that God has given me the strength and the position to go forth into the fire. So I will end this by saying this. As Brandon always says, we will fight and we will win because we have the truth. We have God on our side. And while the left is being tethered down by hate and envy and greed, we are being brought together with this movement, with patriotism, a love for our country, and a love for God. And at the end of the day, we got love on our side. Thank you guys so much for being a part of this.
America. We got love, love, love. You better believe it. We got love, love, love. You better believe it.
I got house in the carriage, yeah. I got black love and marriage, yeah. They gon' say you can't have it, but I'm like, don't kill the messenger. We gon' break the stigma up. Huxtables turn to Obamas. It ain't about where you been, where you from, what you got. It's all about love. Self-love is the best love. When you gon' take that risk, man. That petty party been over. Don't need makeup to dress you up. I get work on the bathroom floor. Just be eat mine and head roll. Don't like this life defeat you. I hope this message reach you. Throw your hands up. Play catch with the honest. Love is the new money. I'm just chilling with the homies, homies with the hardest. Throw your hands up. Play catch with the honest. Love is the new money. I'm just chilling with the homies, homies with the hardest.
Love, you better believe that. We got love, you better believe that.
I live in abundance. Love is the new money. I'm mentally wealthy, spiritually conscious. I'm fresh out of honest. I'm ballin' and ballin'. I play with the hundreds. Love is the new money. That's my frequency. Spark up, burn the sage. Clear the room, kill the hate. Love is the new wave. Play catch with the hundreds. Love is the new money. I'm just chillin' with the homies, homies with the hardest. Play catch with the hundreds. Love is the new money. I'm just chillin' with the homies, homies with the hardest.
Love, you better believe that. We got love, you better believe that. We got love, you better believe that. We got love, you better believe that.
We want to tell Candace, we forgot. We got to sing happy birthday to Candace. Let's do that real quick. All right. 1, 2, 3. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear Candace. Happy birthday to you. Woo! Thank y'all.